Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Awesome People Talk to Andrew. It's amazing to see everybody in the chat. We've got people from all over the globe, as we were just seeing as we were going in there. And speaking of all over the globe, we have the one and only Andrew Scheps with us here today. Andrew, how's it going? That's my screen.
Yeah, that's. I look a lot like your screen,
There
apparently.
we
Oh,
go.
there I
Yeah.
am. There I am.
Nice.
I think your screen looks better than me, to be honest.
All right, let me go back. It's our YouTube stats.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we'll just do that.
yeah.
How's it going,
Nice.
Mark?
Good, good. Uh, thanks. We're a couple minutes late because we were having fun nerding out.
We were gabbing,
Yeah, awesome.
gear gab.
Today's a special day for you for multiple reasons, I hear.
It is. It is. We had a power outage most of the day, so I
Yeah,
didn't have to work. Oh, the other thing,
right.
it's gonna be my anniversary today.
Happy
All right.
anniversary. That's
Thank you
awesome.
very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Debbie says,
I'm surprised I didn't see like a piece of cake or something flying from the side of the screen at you. Whatever.
well, strangely, we don't have a cake.
Ah, there you
But
go. Oh,
that's
nice.
the hand without the cake.
No cake.
Awesome. All right. Nice. Wow,
So,
people from Muscle
part
Shoals, Canada.
139 of 200. Is that right?
139 of 200. Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
because I know that we have, the 51 or whatever left. 61.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Your math is fantastic.
thank you. Yeah. All right. So, last time we talked about all kinds of stuff. We had a fun chat about Metallica, and we got all the way up to AFI, I believe.
Yeah. Maybe.
And
I don't remember, as we learned last time when I retold a story that I had told before.
yeah, it's a good story, though. It was fine.
It is a good story, but it's not good enough that people want to hear it twice.
Well, if they've made it 15 hours into this whole extravaganza, they won't mind.
Like 9 of us,
Yeah,
including us.
right.
Seriously,
Okay.
thank you to everybody who actually shows up. I can't quite believe it, but here we
Yeah,
go.
very cool. So today we are going to be picking up with the Hives, and this is
The
around the
Hives.
year 2012.
2012 with the Hives.
Yeah.
Which story? Oh, I will. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. No, there's story. There are always stories. So the Hives. I had gotten a call about possibly mixing the album "Tick Tick Boom," which had come out in 20 something or other, and just logistically, it didn't work out. It took them longer to finish the tracking and stuff, and I don't even remember who ended up mixing it. It sounded really good though.
Mm.
So then when the next album came around, they got in touch about mixing, which was fantastic because I'm a fan of the band. And so the whole band except the bass player came over and were staying. And so it was like an old school mix where I had a song up on the console, and each afternoon they would come by and we'd work on it, and then we'd print it and move on to the next song the next day, which was cool. And we were printing to half inch
Mm.
and back into Pro Tools. And then when they went to master, I think more than half the record by far ended up being off the digital, but there were a couple of songs they liked off the half inch. But they actually came in after about 4 songs and said, we think it's too loud, like it's just too compressed.
Mm.
Might have been after like 6 songs or something like that. And I'm like, okay, um, but that means we have to recall them. Like, I can't just whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We actually kind of stopped and recalled those, I think, 6 songs, and pulled the level down and tweaked a few things and whatever, and reprinted this, so they were happy with that. And then kept going. But yeah, it was really fun. I mean, those guys are amazing. And I told the story of the live show, I'm sure, at Coachella with Dennis, because it was part of the Dennis Lixon
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
They're hilarious, man. The whole band is insane, but Pele is one of the great frontmen of all time. That persona that he has of just universal confidence,
Mm.
that's one tiny little step short of arrogance because it's funny. Like, I don't know if you saw the promo for their new album, which is the first one since that record. which is
No.
kind of crazy. It's been a really long time since they put a record out. And a lot of the promo was they were doing record signings and things like that. And they were showing up in a hearse, and it was, we're putting the fun back in funeral,
Oh my gosh.
which is just great. So, and if you know their live career, they always have some sort of, not even costume, but something that the whole band wears that is black and white. And sometimes it's half thing or whatever. And so when we did that record for the promo, they were doing top hat and tails that were what, like half black. One side of their body was black and one side was white. And then it swapped for the jacket, something like that.
I remember seeing this.
All one colour on it.
Yeah.
Was it?
On the Leno.
All right. Well, so there's, so Debbie's mom used to come and visit us in LA, and she'd stay in the guest house, and which was attached to the studio, but not, there was no door in between them.
Mm.
And so she wasn't there during the Hives, was she? I don't think so. But they were playing Jay Leno while she was there. And so I said, look, do you want to go? Now, musically, you might not be that into it,
Mhm.
but it's really fun. And you get to go to a taping of an American talk show. It's like kind
Yeah.
of a big deal.
Yeah.
So she said, absolutely. So managed to get 3 seats for it, which was incredible. But of course, they're wearing top hats and tails, and they're all really, really nice. So we go back to say hi before the show and introduce them to Debbie's mom. And then we go sit down, and she said, those boys are very nice. They're so polite. And then they did one song, and she's like,
Oh,
oh,
no.
that was great. And I'm thinking, if they did more than one song, she really would have actually listened and hated them. But the fact that they were up there all dressed up
It all
doing their
went great.
song, yeah, she loved them. She
Nice.
absolutely loved them, which was great.
Nice. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Points with the mother-in-law. All right.
Yeah. You got it. Not
Awesome.
as big a point total as when we went to dinner with Josh Groban. That was
well, he's a very nice boy.
he is incredibly
Very nice
nice
boy.
and so funny. Just so
Nice.
ridiculously funny. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, there was a show, it was on Tim and Eric, right? Do you know Tim and Eric?
Yeah.
I can't remember hold on a second. I can actually find it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He's on one of the episodes singing like some of their terrible songs that they had this made up artist who had written all these songs. And so he sings one of them, and it's hilarious.
I might have
And they
seen
keep
that
calling-
at some point.
They keep calling him different names, and they end up with like Jack Grubman or something like that. It's funny. But yeah, taking her to dinner with Josh, that was a highlight.
That's awesome.
I could do no wrong for at least like a week.
Yeah. Yeah. 5 days. A work week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Nice. Well, also, one cool thing that you did with us was we had a master class in Sweden, and Pele came to the
Yeah, he did.
masterclass.
He did, and he stuck around like the whole day, and then we went and ate, which was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was cool to meet him. Unexpected. Does he live there? I forget what the circumstances were that happened.
Yeah. I mean, they're from Sweden, so I think different people are from different places, in Sweden, but
Right.
yeah, different people are from different places. That's
Profound.
that's just the way the world works, man. So yeah, but Pele was in Stockholm. We didn't make a trip special.
Right. Awesome. All right. Well, I guess we'll fire through here. So that brings us to Lana Del Rey.
Lana Del Rey. So that was something where I don't know how much he did on the record, but like Rick was producing a couple of things, and it's all pretty chaotic. This was right at the end of the project, and somehow you don't want to see me, do you? Why don't you want to see me? Like,
I was trying to reply to somebody. Somebody asked who the band was that put the fun in funeral. It was the Hives. I was trying to tell them in the chat. I hit a
Hives,
hotkey. You know how it
it-
goes.
So anyway, and so I don't know the circumstances, but at some point it was like, hey, we've got these two Lana Del Rey songs. You mix them, like, well, of course, that'd be great. So it was Ride, and it was do I Sing the Body Electric? I can't remember what the other song was. I think it was Body Electric.
Hmm.
But anyway, that's off the top of my head. So they had done a rough mix, and she had given Jason Later, who was the one engineering with Rick, notes on it. And it was a lot of arrangement stuff. And so I did that stuff on the first mix that I sent. And it's like, oh, it makes sense. It was different, but it made sense. And so I sent the mix, and like a couple days later, and this is still on the console, I got something from the management that said, hey, no, we need to work on the other song. Like, oh, okay, but what about this song that's on the console? Like, what do we do with it? It's like, look, we need to get to the other song. Like, oh, okay. So I documented that song, and then I put up the other song, and I did a mix of that song. And so I sent that. And then a few days later, I get an email with comments on the first song. And most of it was completely undoing all the arrangement stuff I did. Like, well, why did you take that stuff out? And like, so I don't know where the confusion was or whatever, but so I put it all back, how it was when I got it. And so I sent that. And then I got comments on the second song. So I documented that mix, took it off the console, put the first song back up. So I went back and forth. I must have recalled each song like 5 or 6 times before we got done. And she was shooting the video for Ride. So I had to send every mix because they were using it to shoot to. They were out in the desert somewhere. And I think that's where the mix notes were coming from, because that, like, she didn't have time to go do anything else because they're shooting this video, and it's in the desert. It had motorcycles, I don't know. So it was really chaotic. And then all of a sudden it was done. And then I think that they didn't use the second song for a while, but then it did come out. Like, it showed up and it was super chaotic, and then it went away, and like, okay, cool.
Wow.
But she's super creative, and all the vocals had vocal effects printed, not on the lead vocal. I had a clean lead vocal, but there were reverbs and delays and all kinds of stuff. And then on Ride, she had re-sung the bridge, and that showed up dry because she just done it before she split.
Wow.
And it was like, what the fuck is going on here? Because I think all the rest of the vocals had 4 stereo pairs of vocal effects.
Wow.
And they were different in the verses and choruses. It wasn't like, oh, just match what she was doing. It's like, well, I had to guess what she would do. And I got close enough that I just sort of got notes about it. But that's nice. Terrifying. When you have an artist that is that particular about a certain part, and then all of a sudden you have to hear through their ears. And especially when I wasn't there while the tracking was happening, I had no idea, what it was she responded to about those particular effects. So that was interesting. But it came out, and I don't know.
Nice. Wow. Who is the producer?
Weird how mixing can be like that. You're in a room, and especially now. I mean, but almost no interaction. Yeah.
That's pretty wild. One of the bigger like things that I got to do, I got one note the day before it had to go to distribution, and it was like, turn the keyboard up or something, and like the person hadn't listened to it, and then they listened to it at like midnight, and they were just like, I don't know, turn the keyboard up. I was like, really?
Yeah. And so then of course I had to get it mastered that night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the mastering engineer was waiting and everything, and it was like, turn the keyboard up, like in this one little spot or whatever. It's like, we were all waiting for like a week for that. But so who was the producer on the Lana Del Rey thing?
Well, Rick had worked on the songs, but I don't think he'd done them from scratch. I think it kind of came through him, but I don't. Yeah. And I think it was only a couple songs. I mean, I'm sure if we looked at the record, the credits would say, but online it's just going to list people. So I'm sure he'll be listed as a producer. I'm just going to clean my specs.
Nice.
So what's going on here.
Yeah. But it wasn't a thing where you could like call somebody up and be like, hey, what did you have in mind for the bridge? with this?
No, because it was what she had in mind. I mean, that was it.
Wow.
At that point, it's like I don't think I ever sent a mix to Rick. I think the songs were almost done, and then because Rick just meets people and like, hey, come by, we'll work on stuff. And so on that song, most likely, all he said was, well, maybe the bridge could be something. And I'm making this up. I have no idea if that's what happened, but it could be that all that happened is she re-sang the vocal on that one song.
Yeah. Right.
And on the other one, it could be that Jason did some programming in keyboard. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because that's just what happens. It's like, hey, here's some files and here's where to send the mix. Like, okay.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah. Crazy. So was this the moment that you were like, I need to look at this Pro Tools thing just going in the box?
It was one of a million moments, but
right.
I didn't, I mean, that decision was coming anyway. It was as much about Sonics as it was about Recall.
Right.
It was that the stuff on the mix bus was analog, so it changed every day, and it was just, it was annoying. So yeah, but I don't remember that being specifically. I'd been thinking about it, but I don't remember that specifically being a thing. That was just a pain in the ass swapping songs.
Yeah. But you had other cases of that. Yeah. Well, this brings us up to Beyoncé. This is exciting.
Now, Beyoncé, interestingly, was done in the box while I was still mixing on the console.
Wow.
And what was I mixing? I don't remember at all what it was that I was mixing on the console. But at the same time, I got a call from Tony Maserati, who had been mixing the record, and Stuart White had also done some of it at that point. But he was still tracking vocals and, taking care of that. And Tony said, like, look, they're telling me that, we've got this deadline. And there are 2 songs I haven't even had a chance to start. So can you have a look at them? Like, okay. Like, who's going to say no to that?
Right.
So I went by the studio, I picked up some files, I went home, and the stuff is in great shape already. I mean, she has very definite ideas, and Stuart is a ridiculously great engineer. So it wasn't like I was mixing from scratch. Like, there was stuff there. So, and I had like a couple of notes, which was, this one's not knocking hard enough. That was the first time I heard the term knocking for, drums and things. Like, okay. So I just sort of did what I thought. And obviously I kept almost everything that was there, but it was kind of cool coming in like cold because I didn't have any history at all on the project. So there were a couple of things. It was like, I don't know about that. And I just took it out. Like, and little tiny things, but whatever, but stuff that I felt was working against the notes that I was getting. Not because, now I'm going to go look at the arrangement. And, it was just balances or whatever. I don't know that I took anything completely out, though I seem to remember on one of the songs, I did a lot of sort of automation on reverb returns and things just to clear out some space and things like that, because there's a lot going on. I did EXO and what was the other one? It was super cool. The vocal sound is like she sings it and it's odd but great. I can't remember the name of the song right now. And I was getting like background vocals while I'm mixing and stuff sung into laptops and things. But so then took the mixes over, and every single version of the mixes I had to send to mastering. And I thought, well, that's weird. Why are we doing that? It's like, well, just that way we're done when we're done. And so I think I finished the second song on a Thursday, and that's the record that dropped Friday at midnight.
Wow.
And that's why they were mastering every single version. So they were mastering it. They were cutting it into the videos, which were all shot. Nobody knew when this thing was coming out. And I got a text, and I think it was from Jason later, saying, hey man, the Beyonce record's out. Like, what? Like, I just literally finished printing a few hours ago. And
that's insane.
Yeah. Wow. It was crazy.
Yeah. Wow. Geez. Okay. And like the team had no idea that this was going to happen. You were
No,
just like, oh,
no,
it's
it
just
was
weird that we're
kept
going to mastering.
super, super secret. Because if it
Yeah.
leaked that that was going to happen, then, that would be an issue. But so,
Right.
there was pressure and it was obvious that something was imminent. But I mean, usually, like, they want it done so that they can start the promo,
Right.
not
Yeah.
so they can just
You can
drop. Yeah,
drop.
but I mean, her name is her promo. She doesn't have to
Yeah.
do anything. Just say there's a record, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Which she
that's what
just did
happened.
again. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and is top of the country charts. So,
Yeah. It's
which is
crazy.
amazing. Yeah, yeah. So that was pretty, yeah, it's sort of out of nowhere, and I think I was on it for a couple of weeks, and then boink, it's out.
Wow.
All right.
That's wild. Yeah. Very cool. Man. So you did 2 songs on it, you said?
Yeah. Hold on. I mean, I can find the other song title because it's a really great song. I mean, EXO is an anthem, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were background vocals that they did at a couple of the live shows where they just told the crowd what to sing and gave them a piano melody. So after they'd opened the doors, like, hey, we want to record you guys singing. Is that cool? Like, yeah. And they probably had a sign on the way in, like, you may be recorded. And everyone's like,
Right.
cool. And so then I would get sent these stereo recordings from the stage of however 30,000 people, something like that, singing. Yeah. And then I would
That's
put it in
amazing.
the song. Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Hold on. Let me all music this thing. I think that'll be because it's worth doing, right?
Let's see. So EXO and yeah, 'cause we should all go listen to this. Let's see. So I'm on Tidal right now, hunting for it. I saw you on EXO.
Discography.
Riveting television.
Yeah. So it's the one from 2013. And
Oh, I got it. It is No Angel.
yes, No Angel. Yeah, the vocal performance on that is amazing. Now, to be fair, at some point I had to hear the demo because there was something I had to reference. I don't remember what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way the vocal was sung in the demo by the writing team. So like this was a very intentional thing, but it's cool. And she sang the shit out of it like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the
That's
verses
awesome.
they're insane. They're like you would never think to sing like that.
Awesome.
So
I got to go listen
yeah.
to it. Also, I just want to point out that, I mean, it's kind of evident from this being episode 375, but chat room, I'll talk to you guys for a second. This guy's career, you forgot the name of a Beyonce song that you mixed.
That's because I'm old, not because
That
of
is
my
awesome.
career. I'm just
That's pretty cool.
old and becoming senile. That's what's happening.
Okay, we'll go with that.
I'd love to say
All
I'm
right.
super drunk, but that's not a thing anymore.
That's not it.
That
Yeah.
would be a great excuse.
Yep. Yep. No pubs.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll just keep going right on to the next female superstar, Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga. So that was, I had just finished Mix with the Masters seminar. And so I only had my laptop. And that's when I was still mixing on the console. And I got an email from Rick like, hey, there's this Lady Gaga song. Can you mix it? And of course, you always say yes. And I was kind of terrified. Like I couldn't get into the studio just to start it off, so I could hear what I was doing.
Right.
Because the next seminar had already started and we were leaving the next day. I think we were sticking around or we were going to Paris or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't going to be home for, a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. I don't remember exactly what we were doing. So there was no way I could do it like the way I was normally mixing. And I thought, well, I've been thinking about this and I knew this was going to come up at some point. So I'm going to sit in this room at La Fabrique and use my Sony headphones, which I have with me, and no sound, no interface, nothing, just plugged into the laptop. And I'm going to mix this thing and I'm going to send it. And if it's a disaster, I'll just say, sorry, man, I was traveling and I tried to mix it somewhere else. So, I can't do it. And I just got mix notes. And I thought, well, this is going to sound totally different. And it doesn't, because it's how you hear things.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the main things that solidified, like, all right, this is just what's going to happen. And when I got back, I don't think I mixed anything on the console again. I think that was it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
That's
sure it
amazing.
may have been. I mean, there was a transition through hardware inserts and things like that, but that may have already been going on. But I hadn't mixed anything just purely on
Mm.
headphones. I've been using outboard gear.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So that was that. And that's one, like this happened. This would happen with Rick. I mean, this is what happened on Adele, and we're going to talk about it, where I go back and forth with Rick a little bit. I don't remember ever going back and forth with her. I like sent
Mm.
the mix and it went out into the world. And as far as I know, that's my mix on the record. You know, it sounds like my mix, but I don't, I have no idea. I don't know what happened.
Okay.
I sent the mix and then the record came out.
All right, here we go. Quiz number 2.
I
Did
don't
you
know what
also
song it
forget?
is.
Yes.
I have no idea.
Perfect.
I used to know. You tell them. You're
All
the one who's
right.
supposed to have researched the shit out of this, and instead you just have a list of artists that we made last time.
Exactly. I'm throwing you under the bus.
Out of date,
Now I'm in
incomplete
trouble.
Wikipedia page.
Let's see. Is it? No, that's not it. That's not gonna. All right. Well, I'm not gonna look for it right now, but I will find it, and we will talk.
Yeah.
We'll come back to it in a minute because that's.
What's that?
It's his homework.
Yeah, that's your. Well, it's not
I
even
know.
home, but you are home, so yes, it's your
Right.
homework.
It was my homework.
Well, it still is. It's your now
My dog
work.
ate it. Yeah.
Do you have a dog?
No. I have a
You're
cat.
supposed to say yes, because otherwise your dog can't eat it. All right.
All right. I'll come back to it. I think it might be Dope. Does that sound right?
It sounds familiar, but it may only be because I know she has a song called Dope.
Yeah. Well, you're on the credits, and it says that you mixed it at Punker Pad West.
That was just always my
Yeah.
mixed credit at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
mixed at Punker Pad West Van Nuys.
Yeah, I mean, this would have been 2004. It was done in Shangri-La or at Shangri-La in CRC.
Yeah.
And yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's dope.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So you got to tell me, because my
Yeah.
career is so amazing that I can't remember song titles.
And this is the last episode.
Yeah, because you're cutting me off right now.
Okay, let's go on. Well, yeah, so you just did the one song in that. You just sent it off and that was that. And
Yeah.
yeah. So now we're getting to the point of Ziggy Marley.
Yeah.
And this is Fly Rasta, right? Like this is the one that we
Yeah,
did on
so this is Fly Rasta, and this is when I was doing the transition into the box. And so what I told him at the very beginning of the album was, look, I've been mixing on the console. I can mix your record on the console, but you know what that's like for recalls. Like, it's slow as hell. We can really only recall stuff once or twice at the most, but we just got to finish every song. And he was still working on the songs, and he wasn't done recording the whole record. And I said, or what we can do is I've set up so I can use some hardware inserts. We'll use, the outboard gear that I'm used to using, but we'll basically do it on the computer. And he said, yep, let's do that. Okay, cool. So that's when I really got the inserts together. And that was when I completely pulled the patch bay to set it up, because I had to move everything.
Right.
So that was, and those things are terrifying. Like, you can play at stuff, you can poke at it, but you can still go back. Once I pulled the patch bay, that was going to take me hours to put back if I was going to put it. And then even on that record, I started getting rid of hardware inserts. Like I would have something that I was just used to, and all right, I can absolutely do this in the box. And so I'd get rid of stuff, and get rid of stuff. And by the time we were done, I think I was still using the mix bus, and then probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 hardware inserts by the end of that record. Yeah, and it was great. I mean, he was super fun. And I'd actually worked on an earlier record, years before, that Don was producing. And he wanted to do some keyboard stuff. And I was the guy, post that Michael Jackson record. I had tons of synths and stuff. So they came over for a day. And there was this awesome guy, and he may still be around. I don't know. He was still around when I worked on Fly Rasta, called Sky High. And he was just one of Ziggy's dudes, and he was there. And just hanging out in the driveway, and I still had my dreads then. So everybody on the property had dreads except Don was. Or did he have dreads at that point?
No, I think he did.
I think he did. There was one person there who didn't have dreads. I can't remember who it was.
Me.
Was it Debbie?
Yeah, Debbie. Yeah, it was Debbie.
Yeah.
Jake had dreads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to
And
go
Xanthi
with Debbie or
had
Xanthi.
dreads.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be Debbie and Xanthi probably. Yeah.
Nice.
So, yeah. So then that album went great. It was really fun. And I think I've told the story so many times, but I mean, the song Fly Rasta really scared me because the other ones, they had enough pop elements that it was like, okay, I mean, I listen to enough reggae. I can get the groove. I understand what instruments do. But Fly Rasta was like hardcore old school with Uroy, one of the Jamaican MCs. It was, yeah, I mean, watch the videos.
Yeah.
But that track was important to me. There are certain songs when when you work on an album, there's kind of a song that either you love so much that it scares you, or you just know what it's got to be and it scares you because it's not this like, oh, I'll just discover it as I go and then we'll see if my take on it is with the artist or whatever. There are songs that just aren't that. And they terrify me. And I usually save them until last, which is really stupid. But I'm pretty sure Fly Rasta was last. Yeah.
Do they just stress you out for the rest of the songs when you leave them for last?
No, because I can't think about it. When I was mixing on the console, it's like I can't think about them. Now I'm working on it at the same time as everything else.
Right.
So it's fine. And I can just sort of pretend I'm not really mixing that song yet and work more on the other songs, even though I spend as much time, on the song. But yeah, when it was on the console, it was last. Like that's just, but it was okay because if it's not up on the console, I can't worry about it because I can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I'm psychologically impressed with just
Well, okay, so for anybody unaware, it was your first Puremix video, and you mixed Fly Rasta both on the desk and completely in the box.
Yeah, and neither of those mixes is the mix on the album. I mean, I mixed from scratch for both of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe it was the first not fab video on the site. I was experiment to do an outside person and see how all this went.
It's all your fault.
Which I'm quite honored, that they thought that would be good.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, that one, that video has definitely been a landmark because people constantly, tell us that was the first time that I saw somebody just do the in the box thing, and then I felt comfortable and I went in. I mean, mentors that are on the site have told us that,
It's funny. And there's so many comments like, oh, wait a minute, I thought the other mix was the analog one, but now that I know, I can, the depth and the, it's such a self-fulfilling prophecy on the thing. Yeah. But also, both of those mixes were done in an afternoon. Like, we didn't spend 2 or 3 days and whatever. There's very little, like, time compression in terms of the editing. Sped through a couple of things, but those were done we did them one day after the other, because I just didn't think I could mix it twice in a day. But I'm pretty sure it was, the afternoon of 2 days. So pretty cool. And it was great for me because it's the kind of thing that you say, man, I should do that. I should mix a song more than once, even if you mix it the same equipment, but like zero everything and now bring it up again and see how different it ends up.
Right. Okay. So taking out the in the box on the console thing, what was your takeaway from that? Just mixing it twice. Forget about the rest of it.
Really what it was at that time, I think I had more habits on the console, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. It's good because it's less cerebral. You just kind of do stuff. Mm-hmm. You're right there. What's going on over
there? What was it? A command click on the clock?
Yeah. No, option click. Option click.
Okay, I just option.
Yeah, this is a cool thing I found the other day while I was trying to find something else, is if you option click on the clock in the menu bar of your Mac, it toggles do not disturb on and off. Who knew?
Yeah. Who knew?
Probably everybody in the chat knew. But Um, so In the Box was a little more. I had to think a little bit more, but at the same time, that's how I had mixed the song anyway.
Mm.
And I had made myself notes of like what I did because again, I'm like terrified this is going to be terrible.
Yeah.
And then after the first track, it's like, well, now I did something different, so the notes are useless, and I just got into it and just mixed it. So it's just about workflow, and I hadn't really honed in a template, and there was
Hmm.
just stuff that I wasn't as mentally not prepared for, but it wasn't as simple to me as just mixing on the console because that was so intuitive because
Right.
I'd been doing nothing but for years. But yeah, I love doing it. I thought
Yeah.
it was great to do it. And to be honest, I have not listened to those mixes since we did them because I don't know what the point of me listening to them would be.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But it was really fun and interesting to do it because you focus on different things. And I should probably watch the video now and see how different my approach was. Like I don't care what I did to the individual instruments really, but like did
Yeah.
I focus on things in a different order? Probably not, because you kind of have a
Mm.
routine of how you build the mix up. But yeah, I wonder what was different about it.
Yeah. Well, it's available on a site called Puremix. I'll see
That's
if I can get
cool.
you a
I
discount
should
code.
subscribe, but nah.
Right. Awesome. Okay. Well, yeah, it was definitely a huge monumental moment for us. And definitely, I was just down the shoot in January, and the person actually said like I was an early Pure Mix person, and watching Andrew's video was what got me like off the console into the box and all that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Brian Moncar's same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
a couple of them. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, we are on to Rodrigo y Gabriela.
They're very cool. If you don't know them, they are from, well, I'll get it wrong if I say, so I'm not going to bother. Um, uh, Central and South America. Uh, but they had gone to Ireland, of all places, and they were busking and got signed, basically. I believe it was through Damien Rice, if I have that
Hmm.
correctly. Like he heard them and said, "Holy shit!" and he talked to people, and that's what got them signed. So they put out a few records. I don't know what number record it was that I worked on, and I don't know. I think that they thought of me sort of through more of the Irish connection is how I came up on that record. Are they both from Mexico City? Cool. We got that sorted out. Excellent. Um, so I got sent the record, and basically they had done the record before, and it had quite a bit more sort of production process on it. It had other musicians. That was the first time they'd done that, and they loved it. But they said what we wanted to do now was to really just get back to us
Hmm.
playing. So it was the two of them in a room with, I think it was a total of 6 or 7 microphones and DIs. So there were quite a few sources, and they could be mixed in different ways. There was an MS pair. It may be more than that. It was probably more like 12 mics plus DIs, something like that. And then there were some overdubs, but the overdubs were like, okay, we're going to harmonize the solo or double this thing or whatever. But it was never something um, that wasn't in the original take. It was reinforcement or harmonies, and then a couple of them there were some sound effects and things like that.
Hmm.
And they said, we want this to be like a metal record. Like, you think of them, oh, it's two Mexican acoustic guitar players, and there'll be a flamenco vibe, and that's not it at all. They
Hmm.
love metal. They love really aggressive stuff. And I mean, the way Gabriela plays the rhythm on her guitar is insane. It is so great and so aggressive sometimes. And so I just really pushed it and there was stuff I did on Gabriela's guitar on most of the songs. And I might even have the sessions somewhere. I should pull them up and just have a look, where she would be playing, like banging on the guitar, and then she would do the slap with the palm of her hand, and that would be the big boom. And as I'm working on the thing, it was like that's kind of a big deal. Like that's got to be a thing. And so I would go through the entire track and cut the palm on the guitar and copy it down to another track. And then I don't think I triggered a sample with it at all because that would have been too obvious. But I put, probably it was right when Chad had his quote on the Low Ender plugin. I'm like, I'm going to use that because
Right.
Chad likes it. So I think it was Low Ender that I used. It might have been Max Bass because I used that a lot before then. And I just put it on that. And so you get this crazy low end, but it's still just the guitar. And there was a lot of stuff like that to try and take bits of the recording and really make you focus on things or to make things sort of hyper real because the performances were so amazing, but it's two acoustic guitars and they wanted it to be much, much more than that. And so I just did that and they loved it, and which was great. And they came over at one point. We went out for Thai food with Debbie. That was really
Nice.
fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were super nice, really cool. Went and saw them play live, which is amazing. If you ever get a chance to see them live, just go do it. Absolutely go do it. It was just the two of them on stage and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, so really, really fun. And you know, sometimes you get the stuff and like, look, we just recorded it and it's just us. And you take that as like, that's part of the directive. Like, don't fuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if you kind of get what they're going for, and then it turns out you've got to do tweaky technical craziness to make it happen, well, try it. And if it sounds unnatural to them and they don't want it, just mute it. But if you don't do that, it's not going to go as far as you think it could and as far as it should. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with the way that turned out. Like that was, they played it, but I feel like I did some stuff which really helped make it the thing that I thought they were looking for, and it worked. So, yeah,
Cool.
that's always good.
Yeah, that's great. And that was, so you're coming right off of Ziggy Marley and going into that right after doing the three, pop things.
Well, I think so, but like I said, it's hard to say because things don't come out in order.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's all around the same time.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty diverse though. Like that little pocket of time there is.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I was working on, which I can't remember when I was doing the Beyoncé stuff, had absolutely nothing to do with the pop world. It was something totally different.
Yeah, yeah. Also, yeah, I almost forgot to say, I love that whatever was on the console was not coming off for Beyoncé.
But, well, when I got the sessions and opened them up, if I split that stuff out, I would have been fucked.
It would have been weird, yeah.
Yeah. You had to start from where you were. Like if you listen to XO, the second verse, the entire track is filtered and there's automation all over that filter. So that means that the instruments can't be wider than stereo. Or they have to meet up again and be stereo so that the filter automation will continue. Or I got to make copies of the filter. And like, that's also, one of the great things about mixing in the box is I can do anything I want, but I can also leave anything I want and work around it or with it or decide not to do anything or, whatever it is, because it is surviving from the version that they've already heard.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you can treat it like it was a tracking decision, even though you have edit access and all that.
Yeah. So I'm messing with the tracks themselves, but they still make it to the filter and I don't have to figure out how to do that later.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Shall we go on to Hozier?
Sure.
So, you've done multiple Hozier records.
I have. I've worked on all 3 of the full length and EPs and stuff like that. And hold on, I'm just looking something up because I'm an idiot. Because I don't want to forget names because I'm an idiot. I should just leave this open so I can keep searching. So Take Me to Church had come out and was blowing up because of the video. Well, because of the song, obviously, but the video was a big, big deal at that point. So that came out, and then I'm trying to think like exactly the order of events. I'm pretty sure that was out. And then they said, well, okay, now we want to figure out what we're going to do for the rest of the record. And so I got a call to mix, which was fantastic. That was exciting. And hold on, I just need to make sure I'm going to fuck something up because my brain is not working today for names. I think it's because yeah, it's because of the anniversary thing. So I can't remember exactly why my name came up, but Rob Kerwin was producing, who I interviewed in a. That's when I was talking to awesome people. Great producer, engineer. Just go watch that episode. And so he was producing, and he had already done, like, Take Me to Church came out, and that was his mix. And it wasn't a rough mix. I mean, you know, he mixed the song.
Right.
But they were still in the middle of the record, and like, okay, so that's the mix that came out. We're, what's going on here?
With... Uh-oh. Did you lock up? They might have cut his power again.
Are we...
Oh. I hear you a little bit.
No. 1 second. One second. Hold on. I'm just gonna... Yeah. Hold on. I'm gonna...
pushing an update for Bounce Factory while
just
we're doing
make sure that... yeah, that's what it is. Hold on.
Program.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't lose power again, so that's good.
Prioritize this computer. Yeah, no, I didn't lose power. Better?
Yeah, better.
No.
You're a little pixelated, but it's better. We can hear you, so that's good.
Yeah. Is it sort of in sync? I'm like keeping up a little bit.
Yes. Yeah.
Should I just hang up and rejoin? Should we try that?
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay. I'll be right back.
See ya. Hi, everybody. Andrew will be back in a second. Let's see. I am going to pull up. Oh, never mind. He's back. Here we go. He's in the green room. Hello.
Hello.
Back.
I'm back.
Here. And I actually don't see your camera, though. I think you're just back in audio.
Oh.
And we might have lost him. Are you still there? So, guys, while we're waiting for Andrew, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the YouTube comments, and I'll be sure to jot them down and make sure we get to them at the end of the interview. Here we go. Hello.
Hello? Is that any better? What's going on?
I have audio, no video.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Let me try.
Oh, there you are.
Use a different camera. I don't know what's going on.
Looks good.
It's the built-in one. I got no control over anything, but I think it'll follow me. No?
If it was FaceTime, probably. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
All right. Where the hell were we?
We were on Hozier.
So, Hozier. Yeah. Hozier. Okay. So, so they used Rob's mix for "Take Me to Church," and that was already out. You know, obviously the video was going nuts. So I mixed the record, which was great. I mean, Rob said, he gave me, you know, it was a great compliment in a way, because it all sounded so good when it got to me that I would send him a mix, and he's like, he just sent me back the rough mix, and then he'd listen to the difference, and be like, holy shit. And that's great, because it felt exactly like the rough mix, which felt great, but sonically, you know, was just doing more of everything. It's like, you know, putting low end on those hand slaps. It's just making sure that everything is doing their job even more than they were. And I mixed Take Me to Church as well, because it hadn't been mixed for the record. And at the very last second, they decided to just stick with the mix they had, which is great for Rob. But,
Right. Yeah.
it's a little bit of a drag. And Rob said, man, I loved your mix of that. I thought, we should use that. But he might have just been saying that. But,
Right.
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 So it was great.
Still
And I
nice.
got one of my favorite mix notes I've ever gotten was during that record on, I don't know which song. I will not remember which song.
It
But
was.
at this,
Well, wait.
well,
Let me see what the comment is.
the comment is, when we get to the second verse, I want this to feel like a pillow bomb, because this low end comes in. And I'd never heard that before. He may never have said it before, but we both knew exactly what it was he meant.
Yeah.
And like, okay, all right. So that's what's got to happen. Yeah, I mean, and he's so talented. He's such a great guitar player. I mean, I'm sure people do realize that, but maybe they don't. Yeah, he's an amazing guitar player and obviously amazing singer. And he had, made the record himself in his room at home. And then when he was signed and they were going to do the record, they got a hold of Rob and they said, look, I think really, you can keep most of the instruments and just like redo the vocals and some stuff. And then he got the tracks and he's like, no, you have this completely backwards. We are keeping all of the vocals and we're cutting new drums and things like that. So that's the way he made the record, is the vocals and the way Andrew stacks background vocals through Leslie's. And, it's a very particular thing that he does. That's incredible. I mean, and he must spend so much time on that because it's just ridiculous and awesome.
Nice. And then they recut everything to that.
No. I mean, they kept a lot of his original versions of the song, and then they recut drums.
Yeah.
To that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Wow. Okay. So, I thought that the comment was going to be about the Sex Weasel.
No, that's not that record. That's the
right.
next
Yeah. It's
yeah. Sex Weasel was the next record because we
Right.
talked about that in another video for Puremix Movement. Yeah, every song had Sex Weasel.
Yeah.
It was percussion, but it was a Sex Weasel.
Right. Yeah. So the comments coming in were funny. So let's talk about that record now. The second one.
Okay.
Was it just a return call? I mean,
yeah. I mean, I think, there were a few things in between. I don't remember exactly because there have been like little EPs or a live thing or whatever in between all three of the records. So, yeah, and I think it just went well. So they're like, why not? And this is, I'm pretty sure I've already talked about this, for when I first saw Hozier at South by Southwest. And it was like upstairs in an Irish pub, like to nobody. And then every time we saw him, it was just exponentially more people and more people and more people. And so, but we saw him a bunch and hung out with him. What was that?
First time was in LA.
The very first time?
The tiny show.
That was South by Southwest, upstairs in that Irish pub. That's the one you came to.
No, I came to that one, but I went to another one in LA too.
First
one.
All right.
Because he looked a bit like us.
All right, I'm completely wrong. That's true. Someone said, "Are you his parents?" Yeah, I thought that was the South by Southwest. Okay, so there are two shows. So we first saw him in LA, and then we saw him again. No, that's not right. Maybe I saw him at South by Southwest, and then we went to LA. All right, I got it all wrong. Debbie's right. It's our anniversary, so even though she's fucking wrong, we'll go with whatever she
let
says.
It go.
Yeah, we got another 3.5 hours of this. Yeah. Anyway, awesome. But so we'd actually hung out. I mean, not like we were best pals, but we'd hung out quite a bit at shows and things like that. And I think I was just like, someone who understood. And obviously I mixed many fewer songs on the second record than I did in the first. And that was Marcus Dravs produced that one. I think Rob worked on some early on or something like that, but Marcus did the bulk of the record. But yeah, I was still, the label wanted me to mix stuff, and other people mixed as well. And then the same, with the third record is like they get in touch with me and I do stuff, which is great. So, I mean, I think I mixed more than half of the third record as well. And there's
Wow.
not, I mean, the stories are sort of the same. They show up. I think, for the most part, I have an idea of what he wants. Like there was a song for a movie in between, and Rob had produced it, and they'd done strings. Like it was, it was a big production,
Mhm.
and I don't know why. It was something to do with something else. Someone they had a mixer in mind who did a mix, and Rob just said, "Look, we could work on this, or let's just get Andrew to do it." And I think at that point, the three of us were all on the same page. But it was also with Rob, especially with drums and things like that. You got the very detailed picture of what the drums are doing on this song, whether
Mm.
they're clean or super distorted or what they're supposed to do. And I think part of why I didn't mix as many songs on the second record is I assumed that was the case on the second record as well, but it turned out that that was not necessarily the case. Like there were a couple of songs where he wanted the drums like super dirty. But the mix notes, he's such a nice guy. Like he's one of the only people in the world who starts every email with mix notes with positive stuff.
Mm.
The only one.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody should do that.
Yeah.
Um, so I didn't realize that it was like you've got the drums totally wrong. Like I really want you to fuck them up. And so, after two or three revisions of me pushing the drums a little harder, but being afraid to go too far away from what they'd been, it was like, well, we'll have someone else do it. And then, like, because of travel, he could be in the room or he got the point
Mm.
across or whatever. So it was a bit of a drag. So I kind of wished that I had known, like, oh, you don't want this to sound like James Gadson. You want it to sound more like a PJ Harvey thing that, she did with Flood, something like
Right.
that. So I didn't know that. And
Yeah.
I think that's why a couple of songs went away.
Yeah.
But yeah, still, he's just great to work with. He's super nice. He's very involved. He understands what it's like for other people to work on his record, which is rare.
Yeah. Right.
He's still,
Empathy.
it's not like he cuts you slack because of it, but he does get, how much work it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, that's a whole interesting topic that maybe we shouldn't go down the rabbit hole in the interest of time. But, going off of the rough and really kind of abiding by, okay, this is the picture, like what you did with some of the other records that you just mentioned, you just did a sonically better thing or a sonically more interesting thing. But then in this other case, that wasn't the picture. It was the same producer, right? So how do you?
No, 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 no. I mean that the second record was Marcus Drab, so it was a different producer. So
Oh,
I think
right. Okay.
that's why, that's why it may have come out different. Like they were just working on different stuff, and Andrew always had it in his head that it would get all dirtied up, but no one told me that specifically.
Yeah.
So when he gave
Yeah.
me the notes after the first one, because it had positive stuff, I thought, well, okay, at least we're in the ballpark. But hey, and I want the drums dirtier.
Right.
Not, can you please completely reapproach the drums blown up? So I'm
Right.
not putting it on him at all, but it was me taking the experience from the first record with a different producer and applying it instead
Yeah.
of just trying to go nuts and seeing if he says, whoa, 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 that's way too much and better to back off. But yeah, I got
Yeah.
kind of, it wasn't that I got lazy about it. I just was timid about it.
Right. Right. So when do you know? Say that. I mean that is a great case of this because there's no note for you to distort the drums. You got a rough mix, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And when do you decide I'm going to stray off the rough mix?
Well, it depends. I mean, sometimes I just hear stuff and like, I think this would be cool like this. And, it depends on the artist as well and how established they are sometimes because
Mm-hmm.
like you think, okay, this is all very intentional and you don't realize that there's stuff that's not there. This is why I love to have a conversation with the artist before I start mixing where all we discuss is the rough mixes or
Mm.
just send me notes as if those were mixes and here's what you like and what you don't like because what they don't like about the rough is much more instructive than anything else. Then like, okay, I've got totally free reign here, but this is the stuff that they totally love, so why would I waste time trying to turn it into something else? Like
Right.
that's stupid.
Right.
Sometimes they love the rough and sometimes you gotta just go nuts because they don't like it. But if you don't know that, you're going to try to preserve what's going on. And it doesn't have to be sonically. This has nothing to do with sonics a lot of the time. It's just feel and like, hey, that guitar's way too loud. Is it because it's the last thing they recorded, or is it because they love it to be really loud? And then I will make it work where that's the most important guitar, even though on the rough it just sounds like that's really loud. So you need to know stuff like that. And sometimes there's no way to know, so you just decide and go down a road knowing that, you know, you're going to interact with the artist at some point anyway. But I think it's a really useful conversation to have is, what do you guys think of the roughs?
Yeah. There's, you know, for me, like with much less experience about this stuff, like if I get a rough from an artist that I can't talk to, I'm, you know, timid and nervous to stray off the path a little bit. I mean, definitely, you know, if you want to try something, you do it and then just assume you'll get a mix note back, but hoping to not lose the mix at the same time.
But that's the thing, you know, it's not, you know, but their mixes I love, like the Hozier mixes, I lost those mixes. So it can happen, but it's almost worse if they lose confidence, but you keep going, because then it's hard for them to like stuff. It just is, you know.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Guys in the chat, some things about the anniversary. I think that we should all give it up for Debbie. So, chat room. Give Debbie a congratulations for the anniversary. We'll get it on the screen.
Not all guys.
Nice.
Thanks everyone.
And
generic.
Yeah. We should at this point turn it over to people talk to Debbie.
Yeah.
We get the chat room
exactly.
over there.
This camera looks terrible. I don't like it.
Did your other one come back online or no? It's fine. You know, it's you.
Let me just see if I can get the other one working.
You look a little more like your logo than in the other one, but it works.
There I am.
Nice.
Look how much better that one is. That's why I bought it.
They are. Nice.
Nice. Congrats.
Nice.
Claps for Debbie.
Thanks, guys.
Claps.
Thanks, everybody.
Snurk says claps.
Home
Nice.
says cheers.
There you
Thanks,
go.
Paul. Thanks, everybody. That's really nice.
Yeah, you got to talk to her when you know she's in the room. She does just sneak out because I bore her.
Right.
You know.
She's like,
I have to go to bed.
Yeah, it's true. She has to go to bed. Yeah.
she lived through it, so.
Yeah, and we should do, you know, take questions while we're going through like we did last time. But remember, people, don't ask me about plugins and stuff. We're talking about, you know, keep it on topic. That's
David
what I
Kick,
say.
Jimmy Q, go.
Omni-channel.
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 Right.
Very nice. There you go.
Okay, so with our selected list that we did, this is skipping over one or two things, but going right to Amos Lee.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So I worked with him on a couple of things, but I think the more interesting thing is the live record I worked on. I mean, he's super talented and very particular in terms of how he wants stuff to feel. He's not like I need more mid-range on that thing at all. But when it doesn't feel right, it's just not right. And sometimes it can be hard to kind of figure out what it is that's triggering that. But he did a concert at Red Rocks, and they recorded it, and it was with full orchestra. So they do pickup mics on every single instrument because it's windy as shit. So section mics are useless. Like, it's just not going to happen. So the sessions are gigantic, absolutely gigantic, because every player has a microphone. Yeah. And there's no like, oh, well, let me put up the Decatree and I can use the other ones as spot mics. Like, that's the sound of the fucking orchestra. And it was really windy. Yeah. So these things have pop filters on, but every once in a while, across the entire orchestra, you know.
How many mics was it? Like, how many players do you think?
I'm going to guess around 40. Because it wasn't just strings. There was percussion, there was celeste and full strings, and there may have been brass and woodwinds as well. I don't remember that, but what I remember the most is that the upright basses, their mics were broken, and there was a celeste, and that mic was broken,
Mm.
and I could hear like snippets of it because the basses, the mics would come and go, and then the celeste, like I could hear it sort of bleeding into other things, and like, okay, this is a problem. Like, I don't have the bottom of the orchestra and the thing that plays melodies sometimes. So I had them send me scores, and like, I don't know, I don't think I ever told them exactly what I was doing, because like, what's the point? I know that we need to have this, otherwise it's not going to happen.
Right.
And so I used a sample library and I replayed all the upright bass stuff, and I replayed all the celeste parts and mixed the record. And it never came.
Nice.
This is probably the first time in public it's ever really come up, because it was like, look, someone had played them, but it's not recorded. So what the hell are you going to do? You know, we're not going
Right.
to call up those players, and like it would have been nice if it was their performance, but you know, there was still a band playing. So it
Yeah.
wasn't that they were taking over the role of the bass player in the band. They were part of the orchestration, and we just needed the parts. So yeah, and this is while after we'd moved to the UK, and it's while I was working in the caravan in the middle of a field. And I remember bringing the keyboard up and sitting there playing all these parts, and
Yeah.
it was, yeah. And you know, it's a full concert. It was like an hour long.
Right.
So that was yeah, that was interesting.
It's pretty intense. I mean, did you talk to the producer or anything, or are you just like, this is what I got to do? I'm just gonna do it.
It had to be done. There's no point in talk, because once you talk to people, then all of a sudden they realize like, oh my God, there's this problem. Like, we haven't recorded some of the people, and it's like, look, I know what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was a lot of the basses that was pits, and the bowing stuff. Like, there were no solos and stuff. You know, I'm not saying it wasn't important. It was so important that I had to do it.
Hmm.
But there weren't huge performance things where it was gonna like ruin it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't ever want to say like, rah, whatever, anyone can, you don't need bass players. Like, fuck yeah, you need bass players. I love
Yeah.
bass. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite things, whether electric or upright or, you know, whatever. But to get this done, that's what was going to get it done. Like,
Yeah.
the last thing in the world I was going to do is say, look, you got to go get some people in the studio and have them play. And it was going to end up being pretty much what I was going to do. And if I don't mention it, then we actually get the record done. And they needed
Yeah.
it done. And so I just
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah. That's impressive because, yeah, I mean, there's a number of things that go with that, right? Like, are there potential right things and all of that you know, come up, and you're like, all that matters is coming out of the speakers, or what comes out of the
Yeah.
speakers.
I
I'm
mean,
doing
look,
it. Yeah.
it's possible that all the players, I don't know how that works on a live recording or whatever, but yeah, they may all have like union stuff.
Mhm.
So the people who were there playing get it. I don't care whether their recordings on the record or not.
Yeah.
They were there, they played the show, they were recorded, and you know, they're bleeding into other microphones. Their performance is there. It's part of
Yeah.
the record. So we'll say I reinforced, like,
There you go.
you know,
Yeah.
whatever you want to say, but those parts had to be audible on the record. So I did that.
Yeah. That's
It's
pretty
like
cool.
the really extreme version of reinforcing a kick drum with a sample.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, now you're relying on your musical ear, and you had to go through and, you know, figure out what the parts were.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I can read music, you know, because it wouldn't have happened. I would have like just done a mix without them, or sent it back to them and saying, I think this stuff's important, but it's not here, you know, or
Right.
whatever. But this was just, I could do it, so I did it.
Yeah.
And it's done.
Okay. So you did have the score. Yeah. I wasn't sure.
I had them send
had
the
a little
scores.
glitch out. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Oh,
Got it.
no, I wasn't like writing bass parts. Like, that would be insane.
Well, I thought you were like listening to ambient mics or something like that, trying to listen for the bass line, and then like, you know, going through and programming it for an hour-long show, which would be like days of work. If
Yeah,
it was me,
no, I mean,
you know?
well, it was
Yeah.
still days of work to,
Right.
you know, make it blend in. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
I had the scores, and yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's a cool story. Very nice. Andrew's Orchestral Caravan. It's got a ring to it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. An amazing view, but unbelievably cold in the winter.
And full of flowers.
Yeah. Well, no, we took care of
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I got a couple random comments here for you. One, pretty cool. There's another person.
Nice.
You know,
That's not really
awesome.
off the topic. We did talk about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So,
And then Matt's asking when we're going to talk about Atmos, and hopefully we'll get there. But if you have specific questions, we could hit them in the Q&A.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're not really talking technical like that, but it's a thing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's like in a decade, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, at least 25 episodes from now.
Sake.
Nice. All right. Let's move on
And I have to
to...
be quicker. So,
Yes. Okay, the heavy.
love them.
Love them. Great. Next. Green Day. Great band.
Yeah.
No,
The heavy
Let's talk.
are awesome. They're awesome.
Yeah.
I got the gig because Chad Blake was supposed to mix it, and then he had some stuff going on and he couldn't do it, so he recommended me to do it, which is kind of incredible. So yeah, I did it, and that was one where I talked to them at the beginning. I actually went down and saw them. Debbie came with, and we went down to the studio where they were tracking everything, which was awesome. And they're from Bath, so south of me. And we went down there and hung out with them for a day, which was really cool. And then when I was mixing in the caravan, they'd sent me all the tracks. And what they said was, we think, like the vibe of the record is absolutely there. They tracked a bunch of background vocals and horns and all kinds of stuff. And the drums were tracked with intention. I mean, there were a few songs where there were maybe 3 mics total on the drums, and they were fucked up. And that's exactly what they were supposed to be, which was great. But they said, yeah, but with the middle 8 of every single song, we never really got it to be a middle 8, like, the bridge, make it go somewhere else so that you come back to the song. So kind of do whatever you want on those. Okay. That's terrifying because the rest of the song is exactly what you want. And then who knows about those? So
surprises.
Yeah. Some of the bridges on that record go to very weird places because I just I mixed the record, but then I also had days where I did nothing but fuck around on the bridges, because to me that's 2 totally different mindsets.
Yeah.
That's not a mixed thing. Like the Low Roar records are the only records I ever make where I'm producing and mixing at the same time. Like it's impossible for me to do that otherwise. So, yeah. So, and that was great. But like they started their career, as they call it, crate diving, just sampling records and, sort of almost coming out of the hip hop thing, but a very British version of it. And Bath is not very far from Bristol, which is kind of the birthplace of drum and bass. And there's a lot of music that came out of there that sort of lends itself to this. So, but now they're a totally badass band, but they play those grooves. I mean, they feel like all the best samples you've ever heard. Because that's how they learned to play their instruments, was playing their own stuff, which was done from samples. And I mean, it's not as simple as that. They were always players. It's not like, I better go learn drums. But it's like with the Beastie Boys. They always played. But, when they play on Saturday Night Live, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like it's incredible. Yeah. And that's them. It's not like they're playing a track. That's the way those guys play. And it is funky as hell. And the heavy was the same. And that was a record where, I mean, I mixed loud and I pushed things. And they were like, well, can you push it some more? Can you push it some more? Can you? Well, come on. How about how much further could you push that? So that record is like, it's kind of nuts, but it's really cool. It's really cool. And we saw them not that long ago. Debbie and I went down to Real World, which was fantastic. And had no idea they had a room there. So I was pulling into the parking and I saw there was a charger and got an electric car, and I'm like, oh, brilliant. And so someone was walking across the car park, like, hey, am I allowed to park here? He's like, yeah, Andrew. And it was Kelvin, the singer from the band.
Nice.
And so we hung out with them for at least 45 minutes, just because I hadn't seen them, since we went and saw a show that they did after the record came out, but I hadn't seen them since.
Yeah.
So it was awesome just to hang out with them again.
How
They're
random. Yeah.
such nice guys. They're great. But you have like asking Kelvin where I can park.
Right. That's great. At Real World too. It's just so random. You know?
Yeah, but Real
Yeah.
World is in Box, which is not that far from Bath, so it made perfect sense for them if they're going
Right.
to have a place for writing and stuff that's where they have it.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else on the heavy? Say.
I don't know. Go check the record out. I mean, it's
Yeah.
awesome. I
Yeah.
think. Not that I can think of because we're powering through now, right?
Yeah. Um, Green Day, it was a record. Let's go on. Just keep doing that joke every time.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
seriously though, this is a big one. So,
yeah. Well, so with Green Day,
mhm.
they've got a guy, Chris Dugan, who's been their guy for a really long time. Amazing engineer, great mixer. He's a really good producer as well. But he's been engineering for them for a long time. So I met him when they came in to play on that U2 song, which they used to reopen the Superdome. Sure, we talked about that back in episode
Yeah.
26 or something like that. So that's when I met him and met the band. And so they had done, tons of records with Rob Cavallo and Jack Joseph Puig mixing, or Chris Lord-Alge mixed most of them, and so that had been the way they make records for a really long time. And they had a studio in Oakland. Was it in Berkeley? I think it was in Oakland.
Mhm.
And uh, it had turned into almost like a commercial studio. It was theirs, but other people booked it and stuff. But they still had kind of a rehearsal room and where they stored some gear and things like that. And so they were down there and they started recording. And Chris was like setting up mics. There's like the room mics. One of them was in a hallway and the other one was in a bathroom. Like two totally different sides of the drum kit. Like, well, okay, we can't. It's not big enough to do room mics, so we'll just get some mono stuff. And
Yeah.
so they were writing, but then it became really obvious to them they're making a record. And then
Hmm.
they're like, wow, we haven't made a record like this since Dookie. Like, this
Mm.
is the way we used to do shit before we had a bunch of success. And actually, we kind of like it. So they were just recording and like, okay, we have a record. And I think they sent a couple songs to Chris to mix. And they said, they sounded great. But they sounded like the other records they've been making.
Mm.
And they thought, well, hold on, we made this a different way. So maybe we want it mixed a different way. And Chris said, well, why don't we try Andrew? Which is amazing
Yeah.
that he would even think of me. So they sent me a couple of songs and I mixed them and they're like, yeah, great. Let's do the record. Like, and obviously like every mix on that record is our, 400 and something. Like we worked a lot and there were overdubs that happened. Like I went to LA and we were supposed to have 2 days in the studio just to finish up the mixes.
Mm.
But we ended up recording most of those 2 days. Like there
Yeah.
was just lots of other stuff going on. So it took a while to finish the record, but it was great. It was really great working with them. They're all super nice and really creative and really funny. And Trey, has got this sort of like wild personality with his eyes and stuff when you see him on stage. But talking to him, man, he's so thoughtful and knowledgeable. I mean, not that it's surprising, but all the kind of manic energy goes away and you're just talking about stuff and it's brilliant. I mean, I think that's
Right.
one of my favorite conversations I've had backstage after a gig was, I don't even remember what we were talking about, just a bunch of different music and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, so it was
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, to be able to mix a Green Day record, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Do that.
that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And also on this site up here. There's a logo up
Yes.
here. Yeah. So yeah, so Revolution Radio you did on Puremix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I think that there are stems for that one. Not sure,
There
but if
might
they
be.
are, there's a little download link on it. So
But that's one of
yeah.
the songs they sent. And I think that's when very early on, I kind of came up with that concept of a garage punk band playing in a stadium, which is what
Mm.
they've always been, but they'd they hadn't turned into anything. I mean, they still were exactly who they were, but the perception was more of a stadium band and less of the punk roots. And I think that's what I decided to keep about these recordings, because the recordings were great. It's not like, oh, and they put up a couple of 57s. I mean, they really did record the record, but there was an energy about it. And the fact that the room mics were what they were instead of big rooms and stuff like that, that made me keep from putting like a roomy sample or reverb or whatever. It's like, no, I want to keep this drier. And that big drum fill at the end of Revolution Radio, like that's where I said, okay, I need to figure out, because that's the spot where it has to be obvious that this is a garage band coming out of a fucking huge PA. Like that's going to be the defining thing for how this record's going to get done.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. The other part of that that's interesting is it's coming right off of the American Idiot success, right? That was the record before.
Yeah, but I
this one?
think American Idiot had been out for a while at that point, because
Yeah.
they did the show. Like American Idiot had a very long shelf life as
Yeah.
a record. The tour was gigantic, and so yeah. And I don't know that this record was a reaction against any of that. I think it was
Mhm.
more that they just realized how much fun they were having making a record by themselves in the basement of a building.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, because the newer stuff that's coming out, I'm pretty sure that's back to a lot of the old team. And, you know, it's not like they didn't want to work with them. This
Yeah.
was just gonna be a different record.
It's a project. Yeah. A different record. Yeah. Very cool. Well, that's Green Day. That was the name of that record was Bang Bang. For anybody asking. Or no, wait. Yeah, that was the record, right?
Or no, Bang Bang was the song.
Bang
I
Bang was
guess.
one of the songs. Yeah. So Revolution
That
Radio,
was the
Bang
song
Bang
we
were like
that's
singles.
the song we did the video. Yeah, the album is definitely Revolution Radio. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
the song was Bang Bang. That's the
Awesome.
video. I remembered something after
There you go.
prodding.
Yeah.
Debbie's clapping.
Okay, so past 2015, you can remember the names of songs. That's what it is.
No,
Awesome.
no, I can't.
Okay. Well, that brings us to Kaleo, who we looked up on Google earlier on the pronunciation
Pretty
for.
sure we're pronouncing it properly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Awesome.
what
So
do you
this
wanna know?
record, I could start this.
You start this.
Yeah. Let me tell you about your experience on this.
I would like
My
to.
experience on this was the first time that I heard No Good. I almost fell out of my chair. It sounded so good. Like that, it was the energy, the production, the performances, and everything. But the way that it just bends and stretches time in the bridge section and everything, I hadn't heard something like that. It had been like a long time since like something hit me like that. And yeah, it was pretty crazy. I think a mutual friend of ours, Jay Stolar, worked on or didn't work on it. He just like played it for me in a studio at one point, and it was like I was completely floored on it. And then I was like researching like who did this, blah blah blah, and it was Jakir and yourself. So
Yeah.
how did this come
Yes.
about?
Well, so this came about. I think Shakir said, you know, why don't we get Andrew to mix this? I think. I should actually ask, you know, why are you hiring me? But that feels like a question you don't really want to ask, because I go, yeah, I don't know, actually. Let's move on. So the very first thing I did with them was Way Down We Go. And this was long before the record was finished. But first single. And so I was talking to them, and they said, yeah, it's great. There's a lot of stuff to go through, though, because we just went to the studio and we recorded all the guitars through an amp, but then also through a Leslie through that amp, because we thought that sounded really cool. So pretty much every guitar on the song has been treated like this, but we're not sure which we want to use. And so we'll go through them. And I said, well, wait a minute. Is there a rough mix? And well, no. And I'm really glad I did this. And whether or not this was an education for them or not is irrelevant, but I think it really helped them to understand, like, and believe me, we'll talk about it in a second, like they own their records. Like they know exactly what they want. But I told them, you need to go put this stuff together and like choose guitars and things to the point where you can do a rough mix. Doesn't have to be, exactly, but like choose what it is that should be in the song. We can always change it. We can try things, but like we'll be here for days with me just muting and unmuting things and not being productive. And I'll, have beat my head against the wall before we even start mixing. And they went away, and I think they took 3 days going through the song and choosing everything and getting the arrangement right. And then they came in and we mixed it, and it went well. It took a bit because they're all super particular, but JJ, the singer, he, first of all, what a ridiculous singer he is, just absolutely amazing. And the whole band's that way. Yeah. But he hears stuff that, like, I'm doing volume rides on background vocals and you can barely hear them. Like they're tucked in so much. And he's like, okay, can you turn down these 2 words of that one? And that will be along with some other mix notes. And you do it and you listen and you're like, oh, right. Okay. And it feels, but it's all about what it makes the lead vocal feel like.
Right.
So you have all these other vocals doing supporting parts that if you just said, someone who listened to the song, like, hey, how about all those harmonies in the verse? They'd be like, what? You wouldn't even notice them unless you go back and listen for them. But without them, it doesn't work as well. So he hears detail better than pretty much anybody I've ever worked with. Like Michael Jackson and JJ are the 2 people that spring to mind when it's like every single thing in the song has gotten attention in some way or another. And not the, because I always say, like, pick 5 things that are important and those need to sound great. But everything obviously has impact on the song. Like that's sort of a sonic thing. Like don't waste time really, really tweaking the sound of the 14th guitar part. But whether it's in or not and where it's panned, like, and how loud it is, that's important. So those are the things that matter. And JJ is the absolute master of that stuff. So yeah, it was great. And I think because of how they were finishing the songs, I don't remember doing a big batch. They would come in like 2 or 3 at a time at the most. And so I'd do those and we'd go back and forth. And then sometimes, months later, while we're working on something else, there would be mixed notes on an earlier song. And, but it's great. And I've got no problem doing it. I don't care how tweaky the notes are if people are actually listening and they're not just saying it to say it. And JJ's never saying anything just to say it. It is absolutely what he's hearing and what he's responding to.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. That's very, very cool. And you've continued working with them since that record, right?
Yeah. Again, like with the Hozier records, I mixed maybe half of the second record. So yeah, and there's stuff going on. So yeah, it's great. And I think, I don't know what it is, but I think with them and with Hozier and also with Rival Sons, I'm like this kind of safe place to start from. And then they might venture off and do stuff, but like I'm sort of a constant for when they're making records. It's like, well, we start here and, who knows, maybe you go off and do something else. Like with the Rival Sons stuff that just came out in the last year, I mixed exactly half and one other person mixed half. With the Hozier stuff, I mix, some chunk of songs and then several other people mix the other stuff because they're particular things he wants and, whatever. And it's great, but it's really cool to kind of be the person that's like always part of it. So yeah, I don't even know, what that means. Or everyone say goodbye to Debbie. She's leaving.
Oh, see you, Debbie. Debbie, there was you had one other note for you somewhere. Here it is. Yeah. Congrats on the anniversary.
Oh,
well, that's to both of us. All right.
Yes, that's to both of you. Take your credit.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, happy anniversary, Dave.
Happy anniversary, Andrew.
Okay, well, love you, bye.
Love you, bye. Love you, bye.
And we do that like when you finally go out, but you're going to give them treats, right?
Yeah.
The cats need treats. Debbie's the cat treat person. Have we talked about this?
No.
So when I walk into the studio, they don't even wake up. Like it's not even that thing where they're all curled up but one eye opens to see like what's going on. Like whatever. They can hear Debbie coming 20 feet away and jump up and run to where they have their treats. Like squid just took off at full speed, which squid does not move at full speed.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Debbie's treat lady.
Nice. But they do bring you, dead mice and everything. So
Yeah, but they're bringing me treats. But
yeah,
they just
right.
know that Debbie will always get. But I'm in here all day. I can't give them treats every time I walk in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe they'd wake up for you if you did, Andrew.
I know. I don't care if they wake up. Whatever. They can.
It's like the roof's coming off.
What?
It's very windy and there's a terrible noise. Like the roof, something's
The
happening.
roof is not coming off.
Okay.
I'll check it out later.
Okay.
Debbie's saying that there's a horrible noise in the other room. Should I
Do
go
you want to check?
right now?
It's only when it's really blowy.
Go check.
All right. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go check. I'll find something to talk about.
Yeah, I know what you're going to do. You're going to pull a Steve Lillywhite.
Exactly. This is my show now. For anybody who missed Steve Lillywhite's interview, you should go check that out. I don't remember the episode. Just if you YouTube Andrew Talks to Awesome People, Steve Lillywhite. I think it was when Andrew had to go deal with the dead mice situation. Steve took over the show. Yeah.
There was a mouse. Are you good, Deb?
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Pretty good.
Thank you for checking.
Yeah, I don't think the roof's coming off. I think we're all right.
All right. If you blow away, we'll know what happened.
Yeah, exactly. If I start getting very wet.
Right. Show must go on. Just act like it's not happening.
Yeah, just get an umbrella.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Okay. The next one on our list. Anything else to say about Kaleo before we move on?
No, they're great. They're really great. And I'm sad I didn't get to see them live. There was one AES in New York where on the last day I was having breakfast with Chad and someone else, I think. There's like the really cool kind of diner thing. It's like a block away from the convention center. Mm-hmm. And someone came up to me, and of course at these conventions, and I'm super lucky that anybody cares, but people are coming up to me constantly. Yeah. So it was 3 days of people coming up to me. So this guy came up to me and like, oh, hey, nice to meet you. He said, I can't remember. I think it was one of the guitar players in Kaleo, sorry. And I'm like, oh, right. Like what's going on? Like, oh, well, we're playing tonight. And of course my flight was that night. So I didn't get to go see him. Right. I would imagine that their live show is insane. It must be great.
Yeah, I've heard it's unbelievable, which I can imagine from No Good. Like that's the most live sounding studio song that I can think of, Yeah,
they're really great. I think one of the problems is now, and the person who lives 3 fields away will attest to this, nobody plays near here anymore. It used to be Birmingham was on every UK tour, and people are skipping it now. They play Manchester and they play Bristol. And Manchester's 2.5 hours maybe, and Bristol's an hour and a half. And this is without traffic, but you're going to a show, so there will be traffic, and people work, so there will be traffic. And
yeah,
it sucks. It sucks. So there are a lot of shows I just don't get to. Like I didn't see the last Chili Peppers tour because I just couldn't do it. I would have had to stay overnight somewhere, and that sucks. I haven't missed a Chili Peppers tour in a long time.
Yeah.
So,
right.
It is a bummer. Maybe. Even smaller tours, they just don't play near here anymore. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. State of the live industry. I feel like I had another thing I was going to interject there, but not remembering.
Was it funny?
No. I thought
it doesn't matter.
All right. CRX. Go. I'm doing the very thing that you didn't want to do on yours. The record is New Skin 2016.
Yeah, all right. So, what do you want to know about it?
I'm always intrigued about how you start on the records, which I was, asking about Kaleo as well. But what's the origin of it? I mean, is it
You mean the project or how I started on it?
Yeah, how you started on it, who made the call
Again,
and
I don't really know. I mean, the band, for people who don't know, it's Nick Valenci,
hmm
and I mean, he's super talented. But this is, I think, like they were. I'm trying to think exactly what it was. It was like the. Hold on a second. So from the Strokes had like taken time off or something like that, but they'd said, "Look, we're not making records right now, but let's not be the band where everybody goes off and makes solo records."
mm,
And so I think what he thought was, well, I'm going to do this as like a side project, but it's going to be a band. It's not going to be my solo record. And so he put a band together, and a band played the record, and it was recorded at Josh Homme's studio, I
mm.
think, by Mark Rankin. Um, and did Josh produce it? That's a question.
Let me see.
I
I'll
think
let you
he might
know.
have, or at least some of it. Um, let's look at the production. Yeah, Josh Homme production. Uh, wah, wah, wah. Yeah,
Yep.
John Theodore
Yeah, he was
playing drums.
producer.
And anytime you can hear John Theodore, that fucking guy.
Cool.
I think everybody knows him a lot now from being in Queens of the Stone Age now, but
Mm,
he also is. I might be getting this wrong, but I'm almost positive he's the guy who played drums on the first Mars Volta record.
mm.
It's a
Wow.
fucking monster.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, and if I have that wrong, it's something as impressive as that, but I'm pretty sure it's that. Mark will look it up and tell me I'm an asshole because I got it wrong. So yeah, I started mixing it, and it was, I don't know, it was interesting. Like, most of the time you mix and people email you some notes and whatever. But I talked to Nick for an hour to an hour and a half every day while I was mixing the record. And we'd just talk about the songs and the mix and the stuff. And it was cool. Um, it was really cool. They were just, the songs were put together in a great way. I mean, obviously Josh is great, and especially with guitar tones, like little tiny amps driven way too hard, that kind of thing. Um, and it was a really fun record to work on. I mean, I can't think of anything in particular, but it was great to, be over here mixing a record. And this was still a caravan record, headphones at home and then the
Mm,
speakers up in the caravan. But to have that sort of personal involvement was cool. I mean, it can also be a nightmare, but with Nick, it was great. We just talked a
yeah.
lot. And then, of
Nice.
course, once the record's done, you never talk to the people again because it's that whole, you're in the band while you're
Yeah.
making the record kind of thing.
Right. Right. But during that time, yeah. So that was in the caravan. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah,
How
that was
long were you
headphone.
over?
How long had I been over here?
Yeah.
You mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was. Well, it's while we still had the little rental place before we had bought this place, and that was 3 years. So it's somewhere in the first 3 years. I would say it's probably the second year,
Yeah. Awesome.
something like that.
Yeah. You're like, this could work. This could
Yeah,
work. I'm over here, and this is
yeah.
out.
Well, that
Yeah.
that Red Rocks record was done here. The Green Day was done in the caravan.
Amazing.
That was a headphones caravan record. Yeah, CRX. Um, yeah, most of the records we've been talking about recently.
Yeah. We're all headphones records.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
then
amazing.
then speakers, but yeah,
Yeah.
speakers in the caravan with a heater between my legs if it was in the winter.
Yeah. All right. I have a question for you that maybe some other day. It's irrelevant right now.
Ask it.
Uh, all right. Vocal placement in headphones. I know you've talked about this so much and everything, but I've been trying to internalize how you can even do that. And in stereo, everything for me is front to back depth. I don't think about it in terms of like what's loud or quiet. It's like where do I want it in front of the snare or not, kind of a thing. And I've been trying to figure out like how to convert that to headphones because everything's just kind of bleh, or whatever, right? And I
Yeah, I
think
mean, it's all
vertical.
inside your head. Well, that's the thing is that it's when you're listening to speakers, you get your phantom center that's a little bit phasey, and when you're
Yeah.
listening to headphones, it's just in the middle of your head. because it's
Yeah.
not phasing. I mean, it's not exactly in the middle of your head because your ears are different. They sound
Yeah.
different, but you're also so used to it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like when I was first going between headphones and speakers, I'm only just remembering this. The thing that I used to find was that the amount of reverb would be like wrong.
Mm.
Might have been too wet, might have been too dry, but like that was just wrong. Like I'd been making the vocal way too wet. Put it up on speakers, like what the fuck? Turn them down, put it back on the headphones, like yeah, it still sounds fine. So, but I think that's always the case. Is there are things that don't pop out as much to you, is all it is.
Hmm.
It's not like, oh, you can't hear this on headphones. Like, well, you can't focus on it on that particular pair of headphones. So try some
Mm.
other headphones.
Right.
And maybe the
Right.
vocal won't be an issue, but then you'll find out that something else is or whatever. But like with everything, don't hear a problem on a different monitoring environment and just fix it and go on with your day. Go back to where you made the mistake and see if you can hear it. And if you can't, now you got to change something about that, or don't use that monitoring environment or whatever.
Mm.
But if you do, change it there, and you're just going to learn to listen for that in
Yeah.
that place. It's just, it doesn't pop out the same way.
Mm. Right. Yeah. Just everything has been about, depth for me in terms of balances lately. And that's what I've been trying to like convert over. Like, how could I take this concept or this, this way of listening into headphone land? And that's the thing that
Well,
I haven't tried.
yeah, I think that and I'm probably wrong, but I would say just don't don't worry about how you're going to do it. Just mix the song and then
Mm.
put it up in the speakers and see if you're doing the thing that you want to do. Because I feel
Mm.
like the way you hear stuff is not because you say like, hey, this sounds great. Oh, hold on a second. I need more depth. Like, it doesn't sound good to you until you have it.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll do it naturally because, you've got stuff that you
Mm.
do to make it happen. And I think you'll just find things are stepping on each other. So it doesn't have to have that same like Phantom Center
Mm.
speakers far away from you so it feels as though they're layers. It just sounds right.
Yeah. Right. Just spend time listening probably too, right? Like just
Yeah, and
going back
make
and
sure
forth
like,
and
do you
yeah.
start mixes on speakers and then you go to headphones and try and finish, or like what's your process?
Uh, I'm on speakers until like the last maybe 10, 15 minutes of the mix. And I
Then
just
why are
kind
you
of check
worried
it in
about it on
headphones.
headphones? Who gives a shit?
I would love to go sit on a beach with a laptop or in a caravan.
Well, see,
That'd
that's
be
what
awesome.
you got to take at least some songs and say I'm going to start them on headphones and like try
Yeah.
and get them to the point where you think like, okay, I'm done, and then do the last 15 minutes on speakers. And
Hmm.
if you put it on speakers and it's fucked, then you still got to work at it. But
Yeah.
you'll never figure it out putting them on when like you're done with the mix and it sounds different on headphones, because of course it does.
Right.
But you're completely unused to it on headphones. So for it to feel weird to you is that makes perfect sense to me that it would.
Yeah. Right. Right. Well, yeah, it's the normally it's like let me check and make sure I like it on headphones. And then it's if I try to start it from the beginning, I'm like, wait, every point of reference that I normally use isn't here. So, you know, got to find other ways and all that. But
But you're supposed to just listen as a consumer at that point,
mm,
right? So
yeah,
don't listen for stuff. Just see if you like it. All
it's
right.
doesn't have to be
That's what
that
I'm
hard, is what you're saying. Yeah. It reminds me of that I think it was Sound City with Dave Grohl and Paul McCartney was there, and after they read a song, he's like, "Why can't it always be this easy?" And Paul's like, "It can," you know.
yeah, let's
So,
do
yeah,
this.
just do it.
Yeah. I mean, it helps to be ridiculously talented, but you're talented. So just, check it out on headphones. If you hate something about it, go back to your speakers and make sure that either you're using the wrong headphones and you don't like them or not.
Yeah.
But that's why I use the speakers built into my monitor. The
Mm,
Apple is very conscious now of making sure their speakers sound good. So if I play a mix and it doesn't sound good on those speakers, well, then it doesn't work because
yeah.
it's going to like be muffled or all the things that'll make it not fun to listen to.
Hmm.
So I got to work that out. And it's
Yeah.
just trying to find an environment where when you put it on those speakers, you're already done, as
Yeah.
opposed to like, oh shit, now I got to do that stuff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Those speakers are sounding really, really good in the laptops.
Yeah.
And now a break for comments.
No fucking way. I just got my kids out of the house. You kidding?
Nice.
Thanks for that,
Uh,
though. No, we're not adopting.
we also have a joke. An old lady went to a doctor. Doctor says, I haven't seen you for some time. The lady says, because I was sick. There we go. Ba-dum-bum.
Nice.
Wait,
Ba-dum-bum.
don't I have that? I think I have a ba-dum-bum. I don't.
You
All
haven't
right.
done any sound effects yet, though.
I know it. I know it. All right. Let's move on to our next one. Let me just see. Yellow. I'm not sure what this is saying, but let's just go ahead and hit it. Andrew is all in the boxes except for 1 million knobs and cables and SpongeBob I spot in the background. Nice.
Dude, it's a modular synth. I don't use it for mixing. I used to run stuff through it sometimes while I was mixing, but plugins are so awesome. Like there's nothing I could do on the modular, like to process a vocal or something that I can't do in the box. But I've been using it on the low roar record lately because
Mm.
that's what I do. And actually, I had this thing going on where I just turned the thing on and just randomly patched a couple of things to see, like, I got to start somewhere. And it was doing this crazy, like, I don't even know how to describe it. And like, okay, that's cool, but I don't know if that's the right thing. So I patched a different oscillator, and it was doing kind of the same thing. Like,
Mm.
okay, something's going on here. So either the power supply in my modular rack is fucked up or something else is happening. And I realized I was distorting the fuck out of the A to D, and it was awesome. I was
Nice.
going into the A to D so loud that it was just sort of giving up and then coming back, and different on both sides. But it was different on both sides, but they were both like in random timings and stuff. Like,
Right.
okay, that's what we're going to do. So I tracked it through an aux so I could turn it down, just because otherwise it was, it was so
Yeah.
loud on the track. The track would be sitting at minus a million. It's like, all right,
Right.
let's 12 dB before I record the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, awesome. Awesome.
Wow. Cool. Oh, super fun. Um, okay. Somebody's asking or same person is asking what you need old sponge for. So there's a whole story on that in episode 3-ish, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. I
Yeah.
worked with SpongeBob and Patrick. That's what I need them for. They are signed. I mean, unfortunately, the Sharpie's starting to wear off, but they are indeed signed, which is, yeah,
Yeah. It's
it's
amazing.
badass.
Martin Gavel asks, what about an episode on that synth? There's a whole video on
We did
Puremix.
a video. We did a
Yeah.
video. I mean, it was slightly smaller at that point, but there was most of that stuff because I've really stopped buying things.
Mm.
I think I bought maybe 3 modules in the last 5 years or something like that. So yeah, there's an episode on that. And look, I am not the king of modular synthesis at all. There's so many people who are so creative. Like I watch videos all the time and I try and recreate the patches because they show you what they're doing. And it's like, I'm not quite getting this. It's like when you try to mix based on other people's presets and stuff. And
Right.
it's like, well, it's a starting point, but you'll never make it sound like the way they do. So, I mean, that video's got some fun stuff in it because, like, using a sequencer as an oscillator, that's pretty badass. I mean, I learned it from someone else, but it's pretty
Yeah.
cool building your own stepped square wave. But yeah, YouTube is full of amazing people using modulars.
Yeah. Do you know, totally conversational, Look Mom No Computers or No Computer or
I feel like I've heard of it.
it's this guy who he makes a lot of his own, synths or modules or whatever. It's very DIY-ish, but I think it's Look Mom No Computer or something, but it's fantastic. That guy is hilarious to watch and the editing's like perfect. It's great. Yeah.
Can I tell
Uh,
you something that I saw? I was in Memphis before I went to LA for NAM, and a really good friend of mine, Matt Rossbang, has a studio there. And he said, "Oh man, have you ever seen this stuff that's music for oscilloscope?" I'm like,
Mm.
what the fuck are you talking about? And he plays it, and it's like it's a synth track, and like musically, it all makes sense. But when you plug it into an oscilloscope, there's like a guy riding a bicycle. There are mountains going by. Like, what the fuck? It's insane that there's full on fluid animation built into the waveform of this stuff. What's the phase?
Yeah.
It's incredible. It's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in my life, and it works. Like,
Wow.
how do you get a stick man on a bicycle while? But it's also listenable. It's not like, oh man, turn your speakers off because it's a fucking weird square wave. Like, it's
Yeah.
there's stuff going on. But he's like modulated all of this amazing animation onto the music.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy.
That's yeah. Very cool. That was from Memphis Gong Shop, you said? Or no?
No, no,
Sorry,
no.
I looked
That
at the comments as you were.
Matt
Yeah.
Rossbang it at his studio, and he. I mean, you know Matt. Of course,
I'm going there in a month.
He has an actual oscilloscope. Tell him to play you the music for oscilloscope.
Okay. Awesome.
It's so good.
Awesome. Okay, I gotta remember that. Yeah, next month we'll be with
Write
Matt.
it down. I'll wait. Write it down.
Right. All right. All right.
Because if you don't, you will not remember
I will
it.
forget.
It's too weird to remember.
It
Those are
might be too
neurons.
weird to forget.
No, those are neurons that aren't being used for anything else. Like
All right.
you know.
Got it. Okay.
All right.
All right. Let's see here. Just marking down some of these that are going to be questions for you for later. How are you doing, brain power wise? Get through a couple more
All
here.
right. Yeah, it's relatively early. We're only 2 hours in.
Okay. Well, next on our list is Rancid, and I feel like we're skipping over Tanariwan
Yeah.
to get there. Is that
Well, we
intentional?
could talk about Tenarwan because they're so badass.
Yeah.
Yeah. If
I
you don't know,
have questions for you on it.
No, that's fine. Anyone who wants to know about Tenarwan, just look him up and listen to some music. It's incredible. I mean, the way I've described it, because I had to try and find some words for it, it's like the grooves they play have been going on since the beginning of time, and they just sort of tune them in for a while and play them, and then that goes away, and then they tune into a different groove. Like, it is incredible. And they've tracked a bunch of their records in the desert because that's where they live, where they like have a generator one sand dune over so you don't hear it, and they record the records. And Dave Saitek from TV on the Radio produced one of their records, but they do a lot of it themselves. And they've got a guy whose name I'm not going to remember, French A&R. He's really cool. What's his name? Manager, and he's taken care of them for a long time, and he's really involved in the records as well. And I ran into him because I did a talk at the Red Bull Academy, which was in Paris at the time that I did it.
It's on YouTube.
And he was there, and I hadn't seen him for a while. I met him. I don't remember when I met him, but I saw him, and I knew that he handled Tenarwan because Vance Powell had mixed the record that had already come out. And I first saw them at South by Southwest with Vance, and it was just absolutely mind-blowing. And so I guess because I'd seen him, my name was in his head, and he's like, "Oh, hey, man, let me get in touch with you about this next Tenarwan record." Like, yes, please. And so the only thing, I mean, we won't spend a huge amount of time on it, but one of the things I did on that record is there was a conversation at the beginning of like with the percussion, which there's tons of percussion, no drums. It's all done with hand drums and things. They said, we want it to kind of feel like they're like, not like they're drums, but we want it to be like a beat, not just percussion. And so on every single song, I went through and sort of found what felt like the kick pattern. And again, copied all of the individual hits down. And on that record, I think I actually triggered a kick sample that I
Hmm.
rolled all the top end off it, and it was again just to make the low end do a thing. But I couldn't do it just by accentuating what was there because there was so much other stuff happening on those beats. So I'm pretty sure I triggered a kick sample. And there's one song in particular where it goes from a like a sparse kick drum in the first half of the song, and then the rhythmic patterns don't change, but the feel of the song changes. And I picked out different bits so it switches almost to a 4 on the floor, and you really feel this shift in the groove, and it's really awesome because I'm not changing anything about what they played. It's just accents in the low end which
Mm.
bring out parts of the groove. But yeah, that was another, it was just such an amazing opportunity to be able to work on that.
Yeah, very cool. Um, did you? This is all pre-Atmos land. You haven't gone back to that one yet, right? Or
No,
had to
no,
go back
no,
to
this
that?
is
Yeah,
way pre-Atmos.
yeah.
I mean, I'd love to do an Atmos version of that, but no one's asked me. So
There you go. Maybe they're watching.
yeah, and I can't remember the guy's name, so now I'm dead to
You're right. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, well, not going to him. We'll just upmix that.
yeah.
Okay, so let's move on. Rancid. The record is Troublemaker. Troublemaker, recorded at Sunset,
Yeah.
and yeah, mixed by you.
I mean, there's not a lot to say about that. The label got in touch with me and said, "Hey, man, you want to mix this thing?" And like, yes, who wouldn't want to? And as far as I remember, it just went really well. I did mixes and I sent them, and unless I'm making things up, that was one of those records where it's mostly R1 and some of it R2. Like it was some details, but they just felt like I got the feel of the band right. And that just means it was really well produced and well recorded and the songs are good and like it's obvious where it should go.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was from what I remember, a really quick, not easy, because the first versions of the mix take a lot of work to get there, but I got it right. Like I was hearing it the way they were hearing it.
Yeah,
And, you know,
it's pretty awesome though. I mean, it's a cool compliment from I mean, obviously you have a lot of these, but from a band like Rancid to be like,
yeah,
yeah, you got it. You know,
absolutely.
very cool. Were you a fan of theirs before that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie and say that I, owned all the records, but
Mm.
obviously I love their energy. Their energy is insane. They're
Mm-hmm.
really, really good. Yeah, so I was a fan, but I mean, I don't even know what sort of, I don't know, like a lesser fan, not an Uber fan. Like, I don't know how you would
You just
describe it.
hadn't studied the catalog.
Well, every time I heard him, it was like, oh, this is great. But for
Mm-hmm.
some reason, I didn't get into it more than that. I think everyone's got
Awesome.
a lot of bands like that. Like, oh, I should actually go, and then you don't.
Yeah.
But that's what I've been doing in the gym. Like I've been listening through the entire PJ Harvey catalog in order. That's
Ooh.
been like the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
She's so badass.
That's one
Like,
I need to go back and do. Yeah. I
holy
know the
shit. And
song
from
on
the
the
beginning, and include the record she made with John Parrish too. That's amazing.
cool.
Yeah.
Nice. I know the song on the Batman Forever soundtrack.
Which one's that? I have
I
no
don't
idea.
remember the name of it, but I loved
I
it.
got it. Okay, I got to give a shout out. And I was actually, because I've been listening to this, I was going to text Wendy and Lisa and thank them for taking me to a concert. But did I mention at one point when we talked about them, they said, we're taking you to go see PJ Harvey. And I wasn't like, I didn't know. This is like when I was really, really young, before I listened, I didn't know that like Beach Boys and Beatles were totally different things. And then you hear some stuff, you're like, oh, hold on a second. Like
Right.
you don't,
Yeah.
there's stuff you get confused in your head and you think it's
Yeah.
similar. And for whatever reason, I thought like PJ Harvey and Alanis Morissette were
Hmm.
like, okay, they're similar because Alanis was blowing up with Ironic, like, okay, they're, it's more of a rock thing. And I hadn't really heard any PJ Harvey, and Wendy and Lisa took me, and it was just
Nice.
like, holy shit. And live, she is just a force. I mean, she's a force all the time. But yeah, those records are incredible. Absolutely incredible. Rob Ellis, and then I think she was still writing with him after Flood, and had started making the records. But yeah, and sonically, just some of the best shit ever. The drum sounds on all the records are insane and
Nice.
totally different. Totally different, but great. But yeah,
Cool.
she's a badass.
Nice.
Anyway,
How many?
I have not worked with her.
Yeah. Maybe you will now.
Yeah, no. It's like the Radiohead Nigel Godrich thing, man. She just needs to keep making records with Flood.
Right.
That's it. And Rob Kerwin had worked with Flood, and he'd recorded at least 2, maybe more of her records
Nice.
with him.
Yeah. Very fun. All right.
You can talk more about
move...
PJ Harvey.
PJ Harvey, yeah. You're on a real kick for it right now.
Yeah.
I gotta find out what the name of the song on the Batman Forever soundtrack was. That's gonna haunt me.
I'm so bad with song titles, as you know, that it won't mean anything to me.
Oh, right. Okay.
What's also really cool is, and I haven't been listening because I wanted to get through the released albums first. Well, the studio albums first, but they've released albums of demos for a lot of the early records, and I'm going to go back and listen to those too, because I think in a misogynist, horrible way, it's very easy to think like, well, she's a great singer and guitar player and songwriter, but Flood's making those records. Like, there's no fucking way. I mean, he's amazing, but she's making those records with him, and I'm interested to hear the demos to see sonically like how much of that was already there and how much of it they figured out. But from what Rob says about working with her, like, she knows exactly what she's doing, and
Nice.
and I think it's easy to sort of not to discount that possibly when you hear about it with female artists, and it's completely not right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm only bringing it up because things like, when you're at the gym, your brain's just sort of going, you're not controlling it very much because you're in pain. But thoughts would go through my head about like something that was amazing on the record, and like, oh, I wonder how Flood did that. And like, well, hold on a second. Who's to say that Flood even did that? That might have already been there, or
Way to check yourself. Yeah.
Well, you got to. You really have to. I mean, and especially with someone like her, where it's obvious it's her. I mean, I've seen her play live. It's her.
Right.
Period.
Yeah. Nice.
Anyway, all right. We can move on to stuff I've actually worked on.
Well, DMK75 wants you to interview Flood.
I tried. After I interviewed Alan Moulder, I said, is there any way you can get... Because he doesn't really do interviews. He just doesn't. He makes records. And he's one of these weird people like Nigel, where he's like, well, why would people want to talk to me? Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
But he just, I don't know if it's also, he just has an aversion to it. But, Serban Gania, but he doesn't talk to anybody. Why would anyone want to talk to me? Like, you've got to be kidding. But I'm sure, if you haven't watched the Alan Moulder episode, I'm not going to give it away. Go watch it just to learn why he's called Flood. I'm sure you remember that. If you don't, you need to go back and watch it as well.
I do need to go back.
Alan explains why he's called Flood, and it is awesome.
Okay.
It's amazing, and it's nothing like what you think.
How did I forget?
I don't know. I don't remember song titles.
All right. Yeah.
But these are the weird things that I remember.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, chat room. It was One Time Too Many is the name of the song.
Okay. Is that on one of the studio records too? Because if not, I haven't even listened to it.
I don't know. I think it's just on the Batman Forever soundtrack, which you, I'm sure, have a copy of.
Obviously.
It was actually a very, very good soundtrack. U2 had Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me on that one.
Oh,
it was
right,
a good U2
right.
song. Yep. Just on the soundtrack. It wasn't put on our phones. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Jeez. Oh, YouTube comments, you're brutal. I'm not going to put that on screen. All right. Moving on. Here we go.
Are they making fun of you or
no,
what's going on?
you too. Not you as well, but you too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's look, it's easy to whatever, but go listen to the records.
Yeah.
You know, they're so badass. I mean, I remember hearing the first like 5 seconds of Octung Baby and being like, what the fuck is going on? And I'd already
Yeah.
been completely blown away by Unforgettable Fire and Boy and,
Yeah.
but when you hear that, like,
Yeah.
holy shit,
So
they're
powerful, especially
they
the
have
drum.
earned anything that you think they may have done wrong since then. They
Right.
can do whatever the fuck they want.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Yeah. Very good point. Joshua Tree is one of my favorite records, and fun random thing. I'm going to play bass for a U2 tribute band on St. Patty's Day in Las Vegas.
Called U3.
Arms of America.
Oh, I mean that's okay, but it's better when it's a pun on the band name itself.
The U3, is that what you said it was?
Yeah, or us four if it's
Us
four-piece band.
four.
Or,
Nice.
that'd be
Right.
good. Or
Yeah.
or you just pick a different rocket. You know,
Yep.
you could be Heavy Lift.
Instead.
Well, actually, fuck Elon Musk. Did I say that out loud? Yeah, you pick a totally different rocket.
Right. Yeah. Not a
Wait, no,
SpaceX
U2 is
one.
a spy plane. The V2 is a rocket. I got that totally wrong. Pick a different spy plane.
Um, the stealth one, the black one,
That's the bomber. That's a stealth
the
bomber.
bomber. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I got nothing. I don't know any spy
I'm
planes.
glad I cleared up the rocket surveillance plane, before the chat got to it, because I'd never live that one down.
Let me see if they did yet. We're on a delay, but hopefully somebody pops in with
Yeah,
that one.
if you're not sure about U2, I would really highly recommend. I mean, I didn't like Joshua Tree as much as Unforgettable Fire, and they're kind of same era ish.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, In the Name of Love, like it's SR-71. All right, we can go for that.
That was a real band, though.
Yeah. But yeah, Octung Baby is just insanely great. It really is. But that's like saying, "Oh, the Stones are shit" because they did some disco stuff. Like, you know,
Right. Yeah.
and even
Zeropa.
if you don't think that the new record is like a second coming, like whatever, but they've got a catalog to where they can do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah. Yeah. Pop was what got me into them. I saw the Pop Mart tour, and my brother was in college, and we got tickets for super cheap, went and saw them, and then I was like, what is this band? This is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had, I mean, I got to see Bowie live, but it was, what album was it? I mean, it was a later record. It was great. I mean, and Peter Frampton was touring with him playing guitar. But some of like the stage show, U2 always puts on an insane show. And
Yeah.
Bowie always put on an insane show. Like there's one thing first of all, like the concert starts with him in an armchair being lowered from the rigging, like
Oh my
singing
gosh.
telephone. But at one point, there's this. I mean, a couple of things. There's ski boots that were attached to the stage, so there were. I mean, they're not dancers in the way like Beyonce has dancers. It's not that, but there were some people who did stuff who were not part of the band. And at one point, this woman comes out and she gets into the ski boots, and so she's on the stage doing stuff and then just going horizontal, both forwards and backwards, because her feet are basically nailed to the stage.
Yeah.
And it was incredible. And then at another part in the show, she just starts coming in from the side of my hands are not on there, coming in from the side of the stage, just walking across the stage. And she's in this white dress. And then you realize it's got this train that just keeps going. And she gets to the other side of the stage and her dress is still where she came in. Then she starts climbing the rigging and someone picks up the end of her dress and starts climbing the rigging. And it becomes this gigantic movie screen that's blowing in the wind that is her dress.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
come on.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It's,
Jeez.
unbelievable. So again, Bowie could do whatever the fuck he wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Man,
Do we have to talk about records I worked on? I mean, come on, this is way better. Because
this
I'm
is
like,
pretty fun.
I keep panicking that I'm forgetting the name of everything. You know,
I don't think so.
well, you're about to say, well, like, oh, did I work on that?
Wait, which U2 stuff did you work on?
The only U2 stuff I worked on was the Window in the Skies and the one that they did with Green Day to reopen the Superdome.
Right. The When the Saints Come Marching In, I think. Right?
Yeah, there were
Yeah.
other songs that I worked on that sort of went through the demo stage, but then I didn't work on. I don't even know if they came out. Like there was a set of songs then, but then we did Window in the Skies and The Saints Are Coming.
Hmm. Awesome. Yeah. If, did we talk about this already?
Yeah, we had to because that was the session at Abbey Road where Sir Paul came by and slid down
That's
the
right.
banister, and
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean that's like the what? Yeah,
Yeah. It's pretty wild. Yeah.
yeah, that was nuts.
All right. Let's go on here to the Rival Sons.
Rival
So,
Sons.
yeah, this was 2017, I think, something like that. And you did tracks 1 through 4 and then 3 other ones, along with Dave Cobb doing some of the rest of the record.
Yeah.
So
So Rival
interesting.
Sons is a band. I mean, Dave Cobb, he's really known for his more country stuff. You know, he lives in Nashville and he produces and he's super successful. He
Hmm.
has he's worked with Rival Sons as far as I know from the very, very, very beginning. And he's produced every single record they've ever done. They on a couple of the records, I think they sort of wrote in the studio, and I believe that first one that I worked on was written in the studio. And so it was hard because they'd keep writing, but then it's like, oh no, 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 but the verses were amazing from 3 months ago. But of course, it's a different drum kit. They've torn down 8 times in between or whatever. So there was stuff that was hard, sort of production wise. But and again, I don't know why. I'm gonna guess maybe because of some of the Kaleo stuff is why that happened.
Mm.
I don't remember, why that came to me, but they're just fucking great. And that record, and I've talked about this before, where that's the record that had the room mics because they were tracking live everything that had all the bass bleed into the drum room mics. And if you're one of those people who goes through with high pass filters and gets rid
Mm.
of unwanted low end before you've really listened to everything, I would have ruined the song because the kick drum is so fucking gigantic and the bass is so big because they both are sharing this total mess that's in the room mics. When you get rid of it, the kick gets small, the bass gets small. They're both
Mm.
tight. They're exactly where you want them to be. You can do anything you want with them, but they're not fun because they're not a mess in
Right.
that way. And you say a mess and immediately that is a really negative connotation, but that's not how I'm using it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they're just great and really fun. And I remember there was one of the songs where I was working on it and I just kind of started on it. And all of a sudden the drums were like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. So immediately do a save as, and then I did not touch the drums. And at one point it was like, I don't think they're as good. And I opened up the previous session, like, they're not as good, but I know I haven't changed them. And I had to go through and figure out what I'd done. And I don't even know what it was, but like something was stepping on what was absolutely incredible about them. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't remember which song it was, and I'll never remember. But yeah, just really fun because they're just so about the performance, and then it's up to you to like blow that up into a record, even though it like the energy's already there from the very very beginning, and it's just a matter of I don't know, figuring out what you got to do to contain it so people can listen to it. Really,
Mm. Yeah. Dave Westner says, "Be the bleed."
yeah. Don't always get rid of the bleed. Sometimes you got to get rid of the bleed. Absolutely. Sometimes you put those mics up and they're destroying something. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Uh, Pablo says, Andrew, how did you process Jay's vocals? I don't know if Jay's the name of the singer for this one.
Yeah.
I feel his vocals are so perfect that processing should be so minimal.
Well, yeah, he's a fantastic singer. I mean, I don't think anything's tuned because you couldn't have, like, a lot of those are live vocals as well. So there's a lot of bleed. But it was exactly what I do on all the vocals. It's all those chains that I've been talking about for 15, 20 years. It's, the parallel Pultec LA2A thing, and then 1176 all buttons in thing, and then I've got the effects that are built in the template, and those change up a little bit, and I might build special stuff for a song or sometimes for a whole record if I find something that really works. But I think really what that was about was what it usually is about, is just making sure the vocal keeps up with how gigantic other things get. So in the choruses, I'm sure I'm adding some extra slap and
Mm.
stuff like that just to thicken. But yeah, I mean, his voice is amazing. It's great when you're working with a band where the singer's voice works with the instruments and you're not fighting to make room. So yeah, and that's the way that band is. And another thing is that usually the guitar arrangements are not complicated, and you can get to, there are guitars on the left and guitars on the right, and they're just great, but you're not trying to figure out, like, well, okay, this guitar really should be in the middle, but it can't be in the middle because then it steps on the vocal and you got to put it out a little. Like, you don't have as many of those issues, which also
Mm.
leaves more room for the snare, and it helps you out in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. And that was probably all at RCAB?
I would assume
Yeah.
so, but yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know.
Awesome. Okay. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
So do you want the list of what's left? Do you want to know how many are there?
Well, there's probably no way we can finish, but do we have another episode's worth? This is our.
I think we have an episode with Q&A. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, should we
Yeah, because we
should we
haven't
do a
gotten
little bit
to
of
Atmos
Q&A?
stuff. Sorry?
Because we're 2.5 hours. So should we do a little Q&A and then we come back for the rest?
That's what I was just going through. I'm like, if we go through these artists right now, we're just going to go fast, quick fire, and it doesn't
Yeah, I
feel
can't go
awesome.
for
I don't want
another
to end it
2 or
that
3
way.
hours
Right.
either.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll finish up next time. So we can do some Q&A now,
Cool.
and then we'll schedule
Okay.
one more because otherwise it wouldn't be 300 episodes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We should be able to get through it in one more for sure. But yeah, I don't want to blast through these after we've
It
come so far.
Yeah, it does
And be
feel
like,
like
cool,
there's
that
a
was fun.
lot,
See you.
but maybe not.
Well, yeah, I mean, our list too, we didn't go all the way up to today either. There's other stuff. You've been
Oh, yeah,
working, Andrew.
we probably blew some stuff off. But there's the whole
Yeah.
COVID thing where stuff really did slow down until people figured out how to make records. So there's probably about 6 months where I didn't work a whole lot, so we got a chunk there.
Yeah. I don't know. If you look at your Discog in like the last 3 years though, I mean there's a lot of stuff in there.
Is there? All right.
Yeah, you got a Billy Gibbons thing, there's another Kaleo record. There's a Florence record, which we'll get to. Spoon, Smashing
Yeah,
Pumpkins,
some
making
stuff.
records. Some stuff.
Yeah.
It's
All
pretty
right.
good.
Well, you'll flesh that list out, and we'll do that list next time.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right.
Let's do some Q&A.
Okay.
Guys, if you haven't gotten your questions in yet, get them in now, and we'll be sure to get to them. All right. First one.
Try and keep it like life and career stuff, and not plug in these compressor stuff.
All right.
So
That's
you
not
get
going to be the first one. Then next one. No, I'm just kidding. This is back to our headphone conversation. Harriosa, how loud do you mix on headphones?
Uh,
In dB,
I
please.
I used to be. I have no idea. I used to be a very loud and very quiet person, mixing both speakers and headphones, and now I am a medium level all the time on everything, and then I'll listen quiet.
Mm.
So it's not. I don't know how loud. No idea, but it's not that loud. But if you're not at a certain level, you can't hear detail. You can't hear quiet stuff. So, but listening really quietly, you just listen to balance because you can't hear the quiet stuff. So that's good. You make sure that's how you know when your vocal's good. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Since getting the PMCs of your dreams, have you been doing much headphones lately? You still check it, spend
I
a fair
still
amount
do
of
the
time?
same process. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a couple of things that I've mixed almost exclusively on speakers. And I don't know why. I just decided, like, okay, that's the way I'm going to do this.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm so used to doing it the other way. That's just the
Yeah.
way I work. Like, I mean, and the speakers are insane and I love them. But even before that, when I finally had a room that wasn't a caravan that I could have my speakers in, that I was in all the time, it's just the way I've started doing it. And it's also like prepping sessions is easier on headphones. I can turn them down, but I can still really hear stuff. And, there's some stuff that's easier. And it's like I was saying very early on, there's this sense of, well, I'm not really mixing yet. So there's no jeopardy to it. I can do whatever the fuck I want. And it turns out that I get much, much further on the mix than I think I am, but without the sort of panicked, like, am I doing a good job? Is this any good? Does it suck? And then I get on
Mhm.
the speakers and do some tweaks and, all good.
Yeah. Very cool. Pavia says we need some motorcycle.
Yeah, we haven't talked about motorcycle at all, have
Yeah.
we? All right. Yeah, you better put them on the list. Pavlos is absolutely right.
Yeah. Okay.
Plus, Anastasitos is a fucking badass
Isn't
last
it?
name. And I think I just said it right.
I think he did. We'll go with it.
Well,
He can correct us in the chat. Yeah.
Papanastasitos.
Yeah.
But I probably have
Let's see.
the emphasis on the wrong syllable. So,
Nice. I'm impressed that you took a stab at it. That's pretty good. All right. Question: is the client always right because it's their art and vision most importantly of all? For
yes.
example, you're just like yes, whatever it
Yes.
is. Yes. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. When the third guitar take was the best in my opinion, but the second was the one that the band chose, and now every time I hear it released, I think that they should have used the third.
yeah, I mean, whose name's on the record?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, look, if you're producing and you feel that way, you say it and you push for it if you can. But yeah, at the end of the day, it is
Mm-hmm.
not your record. And there's some people who make records in a totally different way and they make great records, like really great records. But I feel pretty strongly that if the artist, as long as they like it because they like it, not because they hate you, so they don't want to use the thing that you like. I mean, then you're just into stupid town.
It's
So
probably not going to be a very good record if that's the case.
no, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Or if they think like, oh, but other people are going to like Take Two better. But yeah,
Mm.
other than that, you just got to let it go. I mean, and the thing I always try and do is to figure out what is it that they like about it, and then make sure that that's what I highlight. Like I make it work. It's not like, man, this kind of sucks. Like try and make it as great as you think the other thing is.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. So back to yeah, at the beginning of the question, the end or the client's right, and it's your job to make it, come out of the
Yeah.
speakers well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't just like give up, but you
Yeah.
you make it like you convince yourself, but you make it to the point where, and sometimes you can't. I mean, I'm not saying that you failed because when you hear it, you're like, wow, the other one was better. Like, your taste could absolutely be where you will never like this other take. It's just
Mm-hmm.
not going to happen because there's specific stuff about it that just grates on you. That can definitely happen. But yeah, it's not your
Mm.
record.
Right. That's another takeaway that I've gotten from you that like not to gloss over with it because that was a perfect example of it. You've said in the past too, like uh when I think it's when people have played stuff for you at seminars and stuff, you basically said like don't make excuses for it or something along those lines. You
Yeah,
didn't
you
sound
can't, you
like angry, but
never, there should never be a preamble ever.
yeah, right.
Ever. Just hit play because again, the only thing that matters is what comes out of the speakers. So you don't say I haven't had enough time or
Hmm.
like I've done talks about this
Hmm.
where there's just a list of excuses that show up very slowly on the screen behind me and they're
Hmm.
ridiculous, but they're not any more ridiculous than anything else you're about to say.
Yeah.
Like you can't make an excuse for it because your job is just to make something that people want to listen to. And you're not going to be able to go to everybody's house who listens to it and tell them why there are issues. So
Mm.
there can't be issues.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same thing because somebody just asked me what happens when like a client wants a revision and you absolutely hate it, but you do it anyway, and then now you like hate that it's your mix or whatever.
You you can't let that happen. You do what they want and make it work for you. And
Yeah.
sometimes, if it's a small thing, you're just like, well, okay, whatever. Like, I'll just
Yeah.
do it because it's what they want. And maybe sometimes it's a big thing, like the entire take of the guitar. But you do everything in your power to make it work. And if you can't make it work for yourself, you make sure that it works for them and that they love it. And if they love it, then they love it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is impose your will. Then the record comes out, and let's say it bombs. Now they're going to blame you because that's your record out there. It's not theirs. Like, not only should you give them exactly the record they want to make, they need to own it completely. Not so that they don't come back and blame you, but it's like that's the position you're putting yourself in, where everything that goes wrong is your fault because you talked them into doing stuff they didn't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
not necessarily a good position to be in.
Well, and on the records that you work on a lot, I mean, if you send something back that doesn't make them want to feel like it's their record out there, your mix isn't the one that gets on the record. You know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Look,
yeah.
and there's some producers Daniel Lanois is a really good example of someone who, like, you can tell it's a Daniel Lanois record sometimes before you can figure out who the artist is. But that's what people
Mm-hmm.
are hiring him for. He's not
Mm-hmm.
saying, this is the way the fucking record's going to go. Get out of here. That's like, the joke about when the band is playing a take, but it's all going to get Pro Tools anyway. And they play a terrible take. And it's like, nah, I got what I need. Come on in. That sucked. Come on in. Like,
Right.
it's not like that. It's that's, people are hiring because he has such a specific thing, because he's such an amazing musician. He's all
Yeah.
of these things past just someone who can have an opinion and help a band do stuff. Like, he's really helping make the record. He's in the band. But that's different. I'm not that guy. And I don't think most mixers should be that guy unless that's what your whole career is about. And then you absolutely ought to do that because that's why you're being hired. But I don't get hired for that.
Yeah.
I don't think.
I think you probably do. I mean, you definitely do. There's random bands that are like, hey, let's call that Andrew Scheps guy. I mean, that's for a
That's because
reason.
they couldn't get whoever they wanted to use. It's, people are busy.
Hold on a
My,
second.
my name starts with A,
Thanks for
it's
attending the show today, guys. That's all we have today.
yeah. All right. Anyway,
Awesome.
Q&A.
All right. Well, as we were going through, I was like, man, there's definitely enough sayings now that we could start getting some Andrew T-shirts printed. And obviously, there's "Don't be a dick." All that matters is what comes out of the speakers. And then I think now to add to the list is "That sucked. Come on in."
That's not mine though. I mean,
But
that
that's
was
not one that you like, yeah.
no, I'm saying I didn't come up with that at all. That was a real thing in the
Okay.
90s because there were so many bands, like rock bands, who everything was chopped, and the producer really made the stuff happen. And so it was like,
Yeah.
yep, that sucked. Come on in. And I think somebody actually said it, but maybe not. It might be
Yeah.
apocryphal, but yeah, that was
Yeah.
kind of a school of record making for a bit.
Right.
But that's not
Right.
mine. But somebody sent me a coffee mug that says "Don't be a dick" and has a rainbow on it.
Ah, nice. Who would have done
So
such a thing?
I don't know, some guy.
That's awesome. I still have your sound clips of the "Don't be a clip," and then I was a total dick. Uh, okay, we did that one. So this is an Atmos related question. Is binaural Atmos getting better? I've been disappointed so far. Any changes in that world?
Yeah, I mean, it changes slowly because for the Apple version, it only changes with software releases, and they don't do tons of dot releases except for security stuff.
Hmm.
So it's unlikely that any version that's got 2 decimal points is going to change the way their stuff sounds. And the Dolby binaural encoding, it's changed a little bit in the renderer, but again, not much. And I think the problem is if you use either of those and you're watching something that has a visual, they both work so well. Like
Hmm.
I've taken my headphones off in a hotel because I think somehow this TV show I'm watching on my iPad is blasting through speakers. And I don't externalize at all, not even a little bit when I'm listening to music, like never.
Hmm.
So the lack of a visual aspect that helps your brain say where stuff is coming from just makes it really, really, really difficult. So yes, it's getting better, but I will say the one thing that will make it better is personalized HRTFs,
Hmm.
head related transfer functions. Dolby has an app that does it. Apple has an app that does it. Like, do it, because that is the thing that tries to describe how you hear stuff because of the size and shape of your head, and more importantly, the geometry of your pinna, which is the thing that looks weird, but it directs all of the sound into your ear. And that is very different on different people. And I got an email from somebody, a researcher, who's publishing a paper right now about the head related transfer function and sort of the gender bias in it. Because if you don't have a personalized
Hmm.
one, you're using what is called the generic HRTF. There have been, as far as I know, there have been two in the history of HRTFs. One was done in the 70s and then it's been updated. It is definitely weighted towards white males in the northern Western hemisphere. Period.
So I'm good.
Because that's who's getting measured. You're good. You're good. I'm good.
Yeah.
The generic HRTF for us is more likely to help us externalize than it is for any woman on the planet, and certainly anyone below the equator, and certainly people who are east of Russia. Like, it's fucked. But
Yeah.
whatever. You are measuring people and you've got a sample size that you measure. I'm not going to say that it's meant to be discriminatory, but it absolutely is. So definitely get a personalized HRTF, and then hopefully you'll have an easier time. Because, like, when you listen to the Apple one, if you're not externalizing, because you don't have control over those distance parameters for the binaural, which you do for the Dolby binaural, the kick and the vocal can sound like someone put reverb on them. Like, what the hell is going on? If you're externalizing, it just sounds like they're in a room. You get like the phantom center thing you get from speakers, which is phasing weird, but we love it. You start to get that when you're externalizing. And then what used to sound like reverb, because you're wearing headphones and the vocals right here, but it sounds like it's there, kind of. It sounds fake. If you externalize, it starts to sound real, and then you don't
Hmm.
hear it as reverb. Your brain processes it in a totally different way, because it's all about just tricking your brain to say the sound source is coming from somewhere other than where it's coming from. And headphones is not a natural way to hear stuff at all.
Right.
When were headphones invented? Like, evolutionarily, that's not a word, and it never will be a word, and I
Evolutionarily.
can't even say it. Evolutionarily,
Dang.
that's been like the last microsecond of humans evolving. That's like in one of the episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm, one of the new ones. He's like, I read this thing where we all pull our shoes on using our right index finger to get them on, like as a shoehorn, and at some point our fingers are going to look like shoehorns. Like, you know, that's how ridiculous it is to say that your brain is completely fine. Now, obviously, our brains are very, very plastic and we can get used to listening in headphones. But in terms of the auditory cortex that's been developing for a really long time, that's not part of the picture. So you
Yeah.
really have to learn to listen on headphones. And that's why the binaural is hard. I
Hmm.
said way too much about all this stuff, but it's important.
Yeah, the externalizing thing, I mean, you're basically just saying like have a good attitude about it going in to an extent, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anecdotally, people who listen for a living have a harder time externalizing than people that don't.
Yeah.
So everybody mixing is kind of more fucked than anyone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, I haven't thought about this really, but there's definitely been a point thinking back through it, like listening to, just spatial on an airplane or something like that. There's a point when I'm listening where I go from hearing the spatial stuff to actually hearing things being in positions or whatever,
Yeah,
and it's usually not for a couple songs, and it's when I've stopped listening attentively, I guess. It's like when I kind of like blur out, and if I'm like reading something while I'm listening or something, then I'll be like, oh, I guess I'm hearing it now.
yeah. Well, exactly. Because as
Yeah,
soon as you focus on it, your brain also remembers I have things over my ears.
yeah,
So that's where the sound is coming from because you've learned that now. But think about this is actually really, I was talking to a friend of mine and his daughter, I think at the time might have been 11 or something like that. And she never listened on headphones. Like when I was a kid, I listened on headphones immediately because that was the only way I was going to listen to my Queen record over and over and over in the house.
right.
But she hadn't, like she, listened on her iPhone speaker and stuff like that, but she didn't have AirPods, or maybe she did, but you listen to one or whatever. And she put on headphones and was like, what the fuck is this? I don't think she said fuck because she was 11, but she might have.
She could have.
But I mean, like, it was like, what am I hearing? Like,
Yeah.
this is amazing and terrifying and weird and incredible. And because you've never heard stuff like that, it doesn't make any sense. And then we get used to it really, really quickly, and that's all fine. But
Right.
yeah. So the trying to make it sound like you're not listening in headphones is difficult
Mm,
without a visual component.
yeah. Okay. Let's move on to another headphone question. Listening on headphones through an interface or direct from a laptop or through a Dragonfly or all three?
I used to use Dragonfly all the time, which is a great USB DAC. Now at home, I've got Dangerous Source. Is that what it's called? Yeah, Source, which is
Mm,
great. And because I'm using a matrix and things like that in the studio, I'm AES into the back of that. So it's there D to
mm,
A. It sounds great. I'm used to it. And when I'm traveling, I've got my UAD Twin and satellite with me because I need the chips for some of these mixes. And I use the Twin because I'm
mm,
super used to it. That's what I used for a really long time before I got the Dangerous box.
mm.
It's not necessarily the greatest, but it's fine. And I have used the laptop, like that Lady Gaga mix was done in the laptop because it's all I had with me. Like, what else was I going to use?
Yeah.
And when I started mixing in the box, because I'm a total geek, I bounced mixes using lots and lots of different playback engines, including HDX, to see that they were all the same. Like, is this, and I turned off reverbs and anything with modulation, which wasn't going to be the same. And if I heard anything at all, that I knew there was a problem. It was different. It wasn't necessarily worse or better, whatever, but it was different. The only one that sounded anything like with the phase flip, I could hear anything at all was fully built in. But this is, what year was this? I don't know, 2010, something like that, that
Yeah.
I was doing
The
these
Gaga
tests.
record? Or no? Yeah.
No, this was before I decided I was even going to try mixing in the box.
Yeah.
Um, so it might have been 2012, probably 2012. And I did all these tests. And with the built in, and this could be the playback engine as much as anything, the only playback engine I heard anything at all was the built in on the MacBook Pro. But this was a really old MacBook Pro. And I've done the test since, and it's exactly the same. So it's
Hmm.
just about headphone amp. It's nothing to do with anything else. So yeah, for me, the Twin when I'm moving around and the Dangerous Source when I'm home now.
Mm, right. Okay. Well, while that's going on, there is a blog article being written about how you mixed the Lady Gaga record on a MacBook Pro without an external DAC. So there you
Don't
go.
publish that shit.
I'm not going to publish it. Just to be clear, we do not use ChatGPT for our blog articles. There is an actual blog writer who's very good. But
What the hell? What did you feed it for that? It's just been listening?
let's see.
Or
No, I just told it write a blog article about world-renowned mixing engineer Andrew Scheps mixing a Lady Gaga song in a MacBook Pro without an external interface or other DAC.
that's spooky.
Yeah.
Implications
Anyway.
for the music production landscape.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be terrible. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, Dave Westner, I want to know if Andrew's high back chair gets in the way of monitoring Atmos.
Yes. It
Yes.
pisses me off. So before I had the Atmos room, I've always had like cheap piece of shit office chairs.
Mm.
Then I got one of those kneeling chairs, and that was really good for a few years, and then it wasn't good. And I'm like, you know what? You know who sits a lot? Gamers. So I'm like, fuck that. I'm looking at gaming chairs, not the ones with the speakers built in or the rumble pack
Right.
or anything like that.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine plays a lot of games, and he recommended this company. And so I looked at it, and I'm like, well, they make an extra large one, and I'm going to get that because I'm tall, and in a lot of chairs, like the armrests don't go in a good position. And
Yeah.
I would have been fine with the regular one, and probably the headrest would have come to here. But it is awesome. I mean, you get this like pillow thing that's got magnets in it that moves up and down. And this is the company that makes it, Secret Lab.
Nice. For your
Yeah.
Twitch. Yeah.
They're really good. But yeah, I have to sit up really, really straight. And sometimes I get the kneeling chair out because my room is really small. So it's not like those speakers are far enough away that it doesn't matter. Like it does matter. And it's a drag. So I've set it all up, but I do set it up in headphones as well, because that way I'm listening to the binaural while I set up the mix. So I know if I'm fucking up balances. Because the last, and we've talked about this before, the last thing in the world I want to do is start it on the speakers, be super excited about it, put it on the headphones, and it's fucked. And now I kind of have to start over. Whereas now I go from headphones to the speakers, it's always fine. I'm like, oh, actually, I could move that much further back, or because I'm not externalizing that well, but I know the balance is cool. And I think the only thing every once in a while when I go back to the headphones, because you have to check both the Dolby and the Apple, every once in a while, it's like, oh, well, maybe I put too much of the vocal in the center because it's feeling kind of like it's popping out on the headphones. And so, but it'll be tiny little tweaks doing it that way. So mixing in stereo, if you just mix on speakers, that's totally fine. I think it would be a mistake to not spend a decent amount of time in headphones when you're mixing Atmos, because otherwise you get to the end and you're like, well, yeah, okay, but you think you're done. So I never think I'm done until I'm back in headphones, ever.
Yeah. Yeah. And you start in headphones. You do your panning in headphones.
Always. All my prep is in headphones, and that includes thinking like, oh, okay, this synth would be really cool up top in the back and on far. And like in the headphones, like, yeah, I think that's working. And then when I bring it up in the speakers, I sometimes will get more drastic with panning, sometimes less. Sometimes it's like, oh, no, I could actually move that around. I didn't think I would be able to. Or the other way around, like I've got it spinning and like, okay, that's really distracting. So there can be decisions I've made that are bad, but I already know that overall it works in headphones on both systems.
Yeah.
So I can do whatever I want, but that's tweaking details inside of a mix that already works in binaural.
Right. What is a recent Atmos mix of yours that you love that's available now?
I have no idea. The latest Hozier record is great. I mean, recent, it's hard to say. I think one of my favorites to listen to on speakers, well, the low roar one isn't out, so that doesn't count. There are two that I think really take advantage of Atmos in totally different ways. One of them is I did the catalog for the 1975, and they've got a track How to Draw / Petrichor, and it's really long, and the production's like weird, and it's not like their normal beautifully crafted songs. Like this thing is a journey, and I went nuts on it. There's stuff spinning, there's stuff moving. I use the heights quite a bit. That's really fun to listen to. And then in a totally different way, there's a song for Caroline Polachek called Sunset. And this is when I got a call from the label, like it was coming out, we need an Atmos mix, like, okay. And I haven't done anything for them since, which is a drag because her production is fucking awesome.
She's so
like
good.
You did the video. Yeah, it's incredible. But it was one, like usually I found if you take the main instruments, they kind of end up having to live together. So then they end up living in the front. That's a mix where there's shit everywhere in the room, like individual instruments that happen in different parts of the room, and it works so well on that track.
What was the name of
So
the song again? Do you remember?
Sunset.
Sunset.
I'm pretty
Okay.
sure it's called Sunset.
Awesome.
And
Chat
then,
room.
the whole last Hozier record, I think, worked out really well on Atmos. But different songs got split up in different ways, and
There you go. If you guys have Apple Music or Amazon Music, Tidal I think is doing binaural, right? Dolby binaural.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. That's great. So, chat room. Andrew does have a Twitch channel. They're saying that you need a Twitch channel with your chair. So there is a
Yeah.
Twitch channel, and I believe that we're broadcasting there right now.
Are we? Well,
I
that
think
means
so.
you have a Twitch channel. I don't have a Twitch channel.
Well, yeah. Actually, I think that there was an Andrew Talks to Awesome People Twitch channel when we were doing the show regularly
Wow.
there. Yeah.
Okay.
So there you go.
Well, there you
Right.
go. I've been on Twitch. I didn't even know it.
Yeah, you're a Twitch gamer star.
I own a chair.
You're a gamer.
I bought Death Stranding, and I couldn't wait to play through it just to hear how he used low roar. I only got to the first song, and well, okay, I don't know how to get further in this game.
It's hard.
I
That
used
game
to
is
play
so
all
hard.
the Mario games. Like, I beat Mario 3, couldn't even save on those fucking games. Debbie used to hate it. My roommate, we were sharing a house, and my other roommate Rich and I, we'd be up till 2 a.m. sometimes because we're like, oh my god, I think we're gonna beat it this time, and we didn't. And you'd pause it and leave it on,
Terrible.
but sometimes like the power would flip a little bit and it would reset. And yeah, I used to be okay at games, and then Jake was immediately better than me. He learned to read because there was, I think it was a Zelda game that had a lot of text, and I used to just hang out in the living room and read it to him. And then I said, Jake, I can't, I got to work. I can't do this. And about a week later, he could read well enough to play the game.
Yeah. Nice. That's amazing. And then he went for it.
Yeah. Because,
Very cool.
I mean, so he's way better. But yeah, I can't play games. So I definitely should not have a Twitch channel.
All right. We got to get you on Helldivers 2. You probably haven't heard of it, but it's great.
I've never heard of it.
Chat room, hit me up. We'll play. All right. How's the key lime pie going, Andrew? This is devolving.
Key lime pie? Well,
I don't know what this is from.
Oh, that's Javi.
Okay.
Javi knows all about this. George Massenburg got very upset that we were served what was supposedly key lime pie. He's like, that's not key limes. Like, all right. It was, but he was angry. He was angry that they were saying it was key lime, because key limes are weird. Like, they're a special kind of lime. They're basically grown in the Keys, but they also come from a couple other places, and they're not like bright green. They're kind of brown, and they taste a very specific way. But of course, everybody in the world has key lime pie because they think it's just a recipe, but it's not key limes. And he was pissed, and Javi was privy to that. And I think he found it as interesting as I did that this was something that George really felt that strongly about.
Yeah. Everybody's got their thing.
Hey, hi, Javi.
Nice. Jethro Skull would like to know, do you
I
have
like
methods
Jethro
for
Tull.
getting...
That's good. Huge Jethro Tull fan, by the way. Like, they were in the top 3 for a really long time.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you've got the word analog in your answer, your question.
Let me say it in case this goes to a podcast. So does Andrew have methods for getting analog textures on his mix bus?
I'm going to say no. But then I got to say, well, maybe sort of kind of, only because when you say analog textures, basically you mean harmonic distortion and stuff like that. I don't have anything that does that on my mix bus, but I use harmonic distortion like everywhere in my mixes, like definitely, because I like the way that sounds. But it's not because it's an analog thing, it's because it's harmonic distortion. But that's the stuff you can't not have if you have analog gear. There's so many recordings of me talking about that thing, and I feel like the analog versus digital, or digital trying to be analog, it's a false, what do you call it? A false flag. Like, it's just, it's not the way you should be thinking about it. Analog and digital are totally different. Digital fixed a million problems that analog had, And now everybody just wants digital to sound like analog, but it's because now you have control over it.
Mm.
Like if I gave you some noisy piece of shit plugin and told you got to put it on every single track of everything you ever do, you wouldn't be that happy. Like, oh, but it also will enhance the low end and, kind of make stuff jump out a little bit. But it's noisy and it's also going to do stuff that you don't necessarily like on every track. But you're fucked. I don't care. You have to use it. I'm
Make
swearing
the
a lot
record.
more this week. I feel like I did the other. The word fuck has really played a big part. But yeah, I
If
just
we had a counter, it'd be going up as you're explaining it.
yeah, it's like if there was a swear jar, I would be
Yeah.
broke and somebody would be rich. Yeah,
Yeah.
don't think of it that way anymore. Like really change your thinking on it and think, well, what does analog mean? Because it's not magic, it's not voodoo, it's nothing. It is
Mhm.
extreme high pass and low pass filters because you've got transformers and some stuff. It's harmonic distortion, it's attack and release times.
Mhm.
Like that's what it is, and decide which bit of it you like. And there are tons and tons of plugins that do it, and use them if you like them.
Yeah.
But also feel happy that you don't have to have them.
Interesting thought. So for me, I'm coming up as you're like known for dual Neves and all the outboard gear and, making amazing records on it, right?
Super fun.
Yeah. And then you switch in the box and we all go, what the hell? Right. So for
And
us, like for you, it's just a thing that you did and you're like, oh, I see like the benefits of this technology and I'm going to go here and I can still make it sound the way I want to, because that's all that stuff did, was just I would use it until I made it sound the way I wanted to. But to us, we're like, but you had the thing, you know? And
well,
then,
but exactly. And when I made the switch, I've talked about this a million times. I was really scared that, like, okay, the only reason I'm ever getting hired is because I'm mixing through Neves and a ton of outboard gear. Like, that's what's making my mixes good. It's nothing to do with me.
right.
If that were the case, well, okay, first of all, I wouldn't have a career anymore. I'd be done
Hmm.
because I don't even own the Neves anymore. But then also, after I'd made the switch and I got a call about a record, and I said, look, because they were going to be attending. And I said, look, I don't mix on the Neves anymore. Like, they're off. I mix in the box.
Hmm.
And like, oh, no, 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 no. We want to mix this on the Neve. Like, well, okay, you guys just go book a studio with a Neve and mix the record then. Like,
Hmm.
it's not the gear that mixes the record. It's how you hear things, period. And then you have a set of tools you use to make that come out of the speakers, to go back to the fucking trope.
Hmm.
But it's just tools that you know and that you have fun using. And if they're all analog, great. That's fine. There's no reason not to, if that's what you love and there isn't anything about those logistics that get in the way of you having a career. But if you like it all digital, then that's fine. If you like both, like you've got a hybrid setup, that's fine. Like it
Hmm.
doesn't matter what it is, but stop trying to make digital equate to analog or sound analog. Analog can sound like shit. It
Right.
can absolutely sound terrible. It can also sound amazing, and so can digital, and they will never sound exactly the same. But so what? Neves and APIs sound so different from each other.
Yeah.
Like they have almost nothing in common sonically.
Right.
Neves are unbelievably slow. APIs are ridiculously fast in terms of how they react to everything.
Right. Like the slew rate and yeah.
Transformers versus transistors, and like they're night and day. So are you going to say, like, how can I make my API sound like a Neve? Well, you'll use Neve stuff. Like
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get on the person who asked the question, because believe me, the entire internet wants digital to sound like analog. But
Right.
it's the Brian Eno quote of, all of the shortcomings of the present technology will be the things that people wish they had in 10 years.
Right.
And
Right.
that's exactly where we are with analog stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody
I mean,
wants
you see it
noise
everywhere.
and glitchy,
Yeah.
and that's why there's so many amazing plugins, which is fantastic. And it's why I don't need to run stuff through the modular while I'm mixing. I use it to actually make sounds and do stuff
Hmm.
sometimes, because it's really fun and I love tweaking the knobs. And I've tried all the modular software, which is incredible. But for me, that's about knobs and patching. It's the way I
It's
think.
visceral.
Like, I
Yeah.
don't get anything done when I'm doing it on the screen. Fine. So that's why I use this stuff. Probably half of those modules are digital.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So am
but
I
they have a knob on them.
cheating?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Who cares?
So
Because of
don't-
what you said, it's about the engineer, right?
Yeah, I hope so. Because otherwise,
Right.
you're not going to have a career, you know.
Well, yeah, but we've spent a whole bunch of time talking about imposter syndrome on here, and I just realized that this entire time what we've really been doing is having Andrew Scheps therapy class.
It's
And
not working.
well, no, I think it is. Here it is. It's finally
Well,
happened.
that's because I don't like my beats.
Ah, wait,
See?
nice.
See?
I should change it to beats like the red beats. But I'm just gonna keep flashing this here because I feel like we've done it, Andrew. We've turned a corner.
No, unfortunately, I feel exactly the same way. Yeah,
Oh.
I don't mean to get so like I don't want the person who asked the question to take it personally at all. You know, the majority of people learning to do this stuff are feeling like, you know, it would be better if they could make it sound analog. Just the way when I was mixing on analog gear, I felt like, man, this will go so much better if I just bought one of those. And that's how I ended up with as much gear. I was lucky enough to be able to afford it or borrow money to buy it, like consoles. You know, I took all the equity out of my house. But I bought the stuff and then it became easier because it was the gear that I knew what it sounded like from using, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that is difficult. But it's about learning that you like harmonic distortion, and so you learn to apply it. And it's painstaking. It takes for fucking ever. Instead of just like pushing up faders and there it is,
Yeah.
I have to put in, and this is why Omnichannel has 4 different kinds. Because I'm slamming that on channels to do whatever. And the very first thing I do, like, oh, I want to EQ this thing. So I put an Omnichannel on, but before I even start EQing, I'm messing with the preamp knob. Like, okay, hey, how much of this? Okay, cool. And now I go EQ. So I get it throughout the session sort of by default.
Yeah.
But you have to go do it yourself. And that's difficult to know what to do. Whereas when you just push up faders and everything is distorting a little tiny bit, it sounds good. It can sound great, but you can do that anywhere. You can't undo it in the analog domain, which is my argument for people not necessarily to work digitally at all, but to stop arguing that you want digital to be like analog. What's great about digital is we have power over whether we do it or not. The bad part, if you're learning, is you have to learn to actually do it if that's the way you like stuff to sound.
Yeah.
I don't want to make the person who asked the question feel bad. Like, that's not the thing. But I just feel like that question is not the right.
You already logged
question.
out.
Good.
No, I doubt he took it seriously. Let's see. Going down the list of newer things here. Back to the binaural thing quickly. Do you think the binaural mix should be treated separate from the speaker mix like the stereo is?
You mean mix specifically for binaural? No. It's like, I mean, this is the analogy I've used before. MP3 encoders used to sound terrible. And people would like, oh, you got to do a version of the mix for the MP3. Like it needed to have different frequency content or whatever to survive the encoding. And then they got better. And now in a double blind test, I have yet to hear about anybody in a true double blind who can tell the difference between a 256K AAC and a 44-116 wave. They're so close, it doesn't even matter if you think you can hear the difference. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. So if you were doing mixes specifically for that, those would be the ones that all of the music services would have. And those would be the mixes you did for MP3.
Right.
So that is the mix now. And that's what people will listen to on speakers. The binaural, I think, is the same way. The way we talked about it, it's changing slowly, but it is changing. It's a moving target. If you don't update your operating system and you're listening to the Apple Spatial and you're working on a Mac, you're not listening to the Apple Spatial. You're listening to an old version of it. So you can't mix for it. You just have to make sure it works.
Right. And
things have to translate.
Everything's made from the ADM. You couldn't really. I mean, I guess you could.
You would print a different ADM for it, and you know,
Could
DSPs
it be a
like,
different release?
yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's not, yeah, don't do it. It's got to, I think, unfortunately, because it's hard, it's just like when you're mixing in stereo, that mix has to sound good everywhere. An Atmos mix has to sound good on speakers and in headphones in both of the formats that people listen to them in headphones.
Mm-hmm.
It just, it has to work,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
sucks sometimes, but yeah.
Yeah. Just all that matters. What's coming out of the
Yeah.
speakers. Dave Wessner, I have another question for later. Both of you. Is there any particular era of recorded music that you find more compelling than any other? And yeah, F masks.
I mean, at one point, I would say that I think 1971 and possibly 1972 is kind of fucking magic. There's so many ridiculous records, especially rock stuff, especially British rock stuff that was done that year. But I kind of say no,
Mm-hmm.
because they're bands like Motorpsycho, they've been making records for 30 years, and I love all of them. The Beatles made records for 10 years, and I'm not that into the first couple, but I like pretty much everything from then on.
Yeah.
I like all the Zeppelin records, even Coda and Presence, which some people don't really like Presence, but I think they're all great. So it's more about, the bands and what records they're making. And I don't know as much stuff that's coming out now because I don't listen that much in the genres that are huge right now. Like melodic rap, that's not something I listen to. It just isn't. And it's not because I don't appreciate some of it when I hear it. It's really compelling sometimes. And I love the power that's in it and stuff like that. But it's just not what I listen to. But I'd kind of say no. I think that, you can make arguments about certain things like the Blue Note stuff from 50s through the 60s with Rudy Van Gelder. Like those are just amazing records. And maybe you don't like when Miles went electric, but there are people who don't like when Bob Dylan went electric. And that's like 80% of his career, 90% now. So it's just about what you like. And I think most people can find stuff they like from any era, even if it's just derivative of stuff that came before, but everything is derivative of stuff that came before. There's a really interesting parallel. No one's asked about AI. Maybe someone has and we haven't gotten to the question yet, but here's just a really quick version of it. So everybody gets really upset about the stuff that is the learning set for all of these large learning models, the LLMs.
Mm-hmm.
And so talking about the Selena thing, like, okay, that's a specific project and they're given the Selena vocals to create Selena vocals. Okay, that's really, really specific.
Mm-hmm.
Most sets are trying to be as wide ranging as they can possibly be so that they will work on a larger set of material. And I used to think like, yeah, but they're scraping copyrighted stuff. Like there's a huge uproar over the image generating ones, like because they're looking at copyrighted artwork.
Right.
Yeah, move that down a little bit.
Yeah.
Shit's getting in my beard.
It's getting in my beard, yeah.
So okay, but then let's talk about people who write songs. There's nobody who's completely original, right? Nobody's writing music who's never listened to music. So do you need to give writing credit to every single person you've ever listened to? Because that's what a learning module is. And look, I used to be that way. Like, what the fuck? If you're going to generate music, you need to give all the people you've listened to credit. And then you need to give them points. They need to get writer's credit, and that will give them money and things like that. And I talked to an incredibly smart friend of mine who I actually went to high school with and junior high, who is a lawyer in this space. And he's been a lawyer in this space forever. And he, music lawyer, and that's turned into he's worked with some of the tech firms and things like that. And he said, you're actually thinking about it wrong. You need to think about it the way I describe the songwriters. These things are not studying one painting to spit out paintings that are like that painting. They have looked at a fuck ton of paintings.
Mm-hmm.
They've read a lot of books, more books than you can read in a lifetime. Okay. They just have more information than any human does. But what he said that really kind of made it make sense is he said, look, if any of these models ever output something that is exactly like one of the things it got in, it's broken. It's not working properly and it needs to be fixed. Because that's not what they do. It's like, you think of it like, okay, you're training something, and this is one of the early things. You're training a bit of software to be able to tell the difference between pictures of cats and pictures of dogs,
Mm-hmm.
right? Humans think that they look at a cat and like, oh, that's a cat. But that's not the way your eyes work. If you do some reading about the way the brain works, and you first get the raw sensory input, and then that gets put into patterns that get put together more and more as it travels up through the levels of the way your brain is processing this data, until it finally gets up into the conscious part that says, hey, look, a cat. But it's getting shades and lines, and the movement is all vertical and horizontal and diagonal, and you've got the 3 different types of cones in your eyes, and it's easier to think about when you think visually than it is sonically. Though there's an amazing book called, it's just over here, Auditory Scene Analysis. Let me grab it. Hold on.
Did you write it?
Yeah, right.
Are you plugging your book right now?
No, it's amazing, and I've only gotten through a little bit of it because there's just shit going on. This is an amazing book, Auditory Scene Analysis. It's a very technical book.
People can get it. I was gonna unmirror your camera, but it's good.
Oh, right. Sorry. It's so I don't freak myself out by leaning the wrong way. Okay, so the thing is, the person who told me about this book said, look, you can just read the first chapter and the last chapter, and you'll get the gist of the book. Everything in between is the scientific studies that lead to the conclusions. But think about the fact that you could be in a room, and one of the examples they give is you're in a room, and there's someone in a rocking chair that's squeaking, and someone is talking, and something else is happening, and they're all happening in the same frequency range. It's really easy for you to think like, oh, it's all frequencies and whatever. These 3 things are happening in exactly the same frequency range, and your brain can listen to any one of the 3 at any time. You have no problem understanding what someone is saying. You can hear the creaking on the chair. You hear the baby crying, like whatever it is, and you can separate them. And that's what this book is about. And that's the way you learn to, you teach these learning models. It's that same kind of thing. Like, how can they extract stuff that's at the same frequency, but go use spectral layers and separate a vocal from a piano, which has overlap like crazy?
Yeah.
That's how it learns. It learns like what things are, but it doesn't say like, oh, that's cat, that's cat, that's cat. It says like, okay, this is the way the pixels shade as you get to the top of the head. Once it's figured out that, I guess that's, well, it doesn't even think about what is a head. It's just like every picture of a cat seems to have this shit going on,
right,
digitally. The pixels in this picture of a cat do this thing, and then it finds patterns that happen in pictures of dogs, and it's 90% correct. Show it a horse, it's going to say it's a dog. Like, it doesn't know what the fuck a horse is. That's not a thing. It only knows about cats and dogs. But it's not like you need to copyright the pictures of the cats and dogs. If you ask it to draw a picture of a cat, it's going to be some representation of a cat, because it knows like what the pixels need to do for it to think it's a cat. So that's what it gives you, and it's right.
Yeah.
I've been all over the map with this, but what it is it's like, look, these learning models have like gone to the museum and they've gone to a bunch of concerts. That's what they've done. So on a dime, I completely changed my view on it. That you can't need to own the data set. Now, the problem is that a lot of the data sets suck. So there, I would imagine, is a large business in creating good data sets for these things to learn from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it just depends how general you want the stuff that it generates to be. Like the separation technology they developed for the Beatles movie Get Back, and for a lot of the new mixes, like the Atmos mixes of these Beatles records where everything's mixed together, that's unbelievably specific to each song. They're making models just to separate the bass. And then they make a model just to separate the guitar because they've got isolated performances from other things that they can play it. And like, look, this is what the bass does on this song. So that's like when you start trying to get a learning model to recognize your cat, not just cats.
Right.
And it's just a different version of the same thing. So,
Right.
yeah. Anyway, it's interesting, but blah, blah, blah.
But yeah, basically, you like music from all the periods.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's
I think
awesome.
1971 is fucking genius. It's Pink
So-
Floyd Metal, which has one of my favorite songs ever, which the name just flew out of my head. That's insane. Fearless. That's insanely great. It's got a Roy Harper album called Stormcock, and the first song on that is insane. Like, it takes 3.5 minutes to get to the first chorus of it, and it's so compelling. And there's just one descending guitar thing, and it just happens over and over and over, and he varies the intensity of the vocal and the register of the vocal, and you would never, like, when the chorus comes, you're like, oh wow, he just broke the trance. Like, you're not even looking for a chorus. It's that amazing.
Yeah.
There are a lot of other records that came out in 1971 that are amazing. So I would, yeah, if I got to pick a year, that's awesome. But yeah, I like stuff from all the time.
Yeah. If I was answering, I would just say 1991. Look at all these records. And how many of these have you worked on? Right? I mean, not the records, but like with those artists, you know?
Well, all right. So Chili Peppers, Metallica. Well, I worked with Chris Cornell, right? U2, Pumpkins. Jesus Christ.
Right?
Ozzy. See, now we're getting away from the stuff I worked on. I worked on the top half of the page.
Yeah. But that's, I mean, this year.
And
was
you know
pretty
what
special.
else is amazing though is I've interviewed people involved in like as many records as I worked on.
Yeah.
You know, the artists. All right, now look at 1971.
Okay. Let's see. Hold on. Lost my keyboard.
You just got to hit delete twice. Come on.
I know. I couldn't find the mouse. It was the whole thing. All right. Here we go.
All right, Marvin Gaye,
Also
What's
good.
Going On? T-Rex Electric Warrior.
Yeah.
McCartney, whatever. Funkadelic Maggot Brain. If you have not listened to that record, that's the thing you need to do as soon as we stop. I am serious.
What? Wait, what?
Funkadelic
I don't see
Maggot
it.
Brain. It's on the left
Maggot
side.
Brain is the name of the record. Okay, got it.
Yeah. Madman Across the
Okay.
Water. Nursery Crime is a great record. Hunky Dory. Led Zeppelin 4. I mean, it's Stairway to Heaven. Come on. And for those of you who are sick of Stairway to Heaven, the rest of that record is still, it might be my favorite record. There's Metal. Aqualung from Jethro Tull. Concert for Bangladesh. You know, Fragile. Yes. I mean, come on. Live Evil, the Miles record. That live record is insane. It's great. Don McLean, American Pie. I mean, that's pretty good. And the Yes album. They put out both of those records. Those are my two favorite Yes albums, I would say. The Yes album and Fragile. That's a good year. Gentle Giant, Acquiring the Taste. And that doesn't have the Roy Harper on it. Yeah, that's pretty good. 1972, Hunky Dory. Didn't even mention that. Janis Joplin, Pearl. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that was a good year. I don't know. I mean, if I type in like 77, are we going to see something similar? Because I don't well,
yeah,
okay.
I mean, of course.
Yeah, we are.
Talking Heads 77. Rumors, if you like that. Nevermind the Bollocks. Asia, if you like that.
Wait, rumors, if you like that. Let's go.
Trans-Europe Express.
No, hold on.
No, Exodus. That's awesome. The Clash.
Yeah.
News of the World. I mean, it's a later Queen record, but it's still, you know, Before and After Science, Parliament.
Yeah, that was a good year.
Lust for Life, first Iggy Pop record. The Idiot. Yeah, well, it's singles. It looks like that's singles.
Hold on, name a year.
What? That's no good. 2024.
Yeah, well, I think you might
Well,
find
let's do
if I
67.
had to pick a range of years, it would definitely be in this zone. That was not great.
No, there's
Well,
going to be
no, you
great.
got Kanye. You got Arcade Fire. That was great.
American Idiot,
Yep.
Modest Mouse. That's a great record.
Of course, it's
You
all
know,
subjective. That Bjork record was cool.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. There are 5 million records that come out a year now, but the ones
Which
we
is
remember are
crazy.
all the great ones. So when people say, "Oh, music isn't like it used to be," look at the stuff that didn't make this list. And there's so many records that you're like, oh my God, that record sucks. But what you remember are these records, and it's going to be the same. I mean, it's easy for me even to be like, well, I don't know, records these days, blah. But
Yeah.
there's going to be stuff that people who are around now who listen to a lot of music are going to be like, what are you talking about, man? That was amazing when Beyonce did the country thing. And, it's
Yeah.
always 73, 70. I mean, that block for me. Look, the main thing is did I say his surname correctly? That's what we need to know.
Oh yeah. Pavlos, let us know. You might have already, and I missed it. I'll look.
There you go, 59. Yep. I mean, you can go, like I said, the Rudy Van Gelder stuff that just sounds like you're in the room. It's incredible. But you could go 58, and that list would be incredible as well. Because also you're back in Everly Brothers territory, and it's Howlin' Wolf, like an
Mm-hmm.
Elvis, if you're into that. You know what I mean? Like there's so much stuff.
Did
Okay,
it.
I'm not going to do it again because I'll get it wrong. Okay, so here's everybody's homework though.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even going to say like, okay, so same era as Elvis, and for a while this guy was bigger than Elvis. Not a musician. He's a wrestler called Sputnik Monroe. Just write it down and go do some diving on him. He single-handedly integrated all of the wrestling arenas in a pretty big area of the South when a lot of people were not welcome in a lot of places.
Mm.
Amazing, amazing man. Anyway,
Cool.
nothing to do with what we're talking about. Just thinking 50s,
It'll be
like,
fun.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Let's do 2 more questions.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Boom. Can you name some of your favorite records mixed or produced by Chad Blake?
Yes, I can. Some of them. He made a Wendy and Lisa record that's fantastic. I don't remember the name of it. The Latin Playboys records. The first Latin Playboys record is one of my favorite things ever. It's incredible. What's the name of the band? Upright bass player, New York band. The bass player now plays in Fiona Apple's band. I'm not going to come up with it. You know what? Let me look at his discography, and then I will tell you because, because he's the fucking man. The new Black Keys record that I was lucky enough to do, there might be a newer one, but I don't think so. That I got to do the Atmos for. It just sounds amazing.
Javi says Soul Coughing.
Soul Coughing, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Soul Coughing. There's a song on that first Soul Coughing record that I used to test my speakers for years. You'll hear it. The low end on it's insane. Okay, so I'm just going to... Well, he mixed a lot of the new Peter Gabriel. Well, there's an entire version of the new Peter Gabriel record that he mixed, which is incredible.
Wow.
But let me go back, because I want to pick out some of the weirder stuff. Like the Tom Waits stuff he did is incredible. Paolo Nutini is really good. He's done a bunch of stuff with the Black Keys, which is all good. God, he's been going.
Soul Coughing.
Yeah, Soul Coughing. Exactly.
Soul Coughing.
Is that what the chat's saying?
Yeah.
Good. See, I can never remember this shit because I'm an idiot. I mean, all the stuff he did with Mitchell Froome is just incredible. Crowded House, those records. Oh, and Los Lobos, the Los Lobos records, all of them. Like
Mm.
they're, yeah. There's just nobody else I've ever. I've been lucky enough to not watch him work, but talk to a lot. And the way he thinks about doing the stuff, it's just he's so much about the song. It's just
Hmm.
all about the song. He'll just take shit out if he doesn't like it. And no
Yeah.
one's asked him to do it, but like that's what he does. He just makes the song work. And then at the same time, his sonic sensibility is just one of the coolest of anyone who's ever worked on records.
Yeah. Pretty special.
But the first Latin
Um,
Playboys record and the first Soul Coughing record, I think, are two to really check out.
awesome. Okay. Last question. This is from Victor Campos, and he asked so nicely. Hi, Andrew. Please give me a tip how to deal with very mid-rangey, boxy, piercing guitars in mixing.
Well,
Maybe not all at once. Maybe they're
you
not
got to
all
get
those
rid of
things
the
at the same time.
boxiness and the
Yeah.
piercingness. Basically, the boxiness most
All right, guys. It's
likely,
been a great show.
I'd say 500 hertz is evil at all times, and it's generally where boxiness lives, especially on drums. But guitars, it could be that. That will help with the boxiness. But also, boxiness comes from things being phasey. If you've got multiple tracks, try just going down to one mic or something like that and see if that's better. Because boxiness can absolutely be phase in the mid range. Piercing, just like I use omnichannel for this all the time. I use the de-esser for it. You hold down the control key and move the frequency, and you can really hear what the center frequency is because it turns it into a bandpass filter. Just find the thing that hurts and then dynamically take some of that out. I mean, in a way, you've answered your own question. You need to add low mids to offset the mid-ranginess. You need to get rid of some of the boxiness and the piercing stuff, but you might want to do it with dynamic EQ as opposed to just a straight EQ, depending on whether it's only in certain chords that it sounds really bad. And that way it'll take care of it that way. Yeah. I mean, those are the places I would look. 500 hertz, just take it out.
Let me hot fire a question at you.
Hot fire.
Yeah, hot fire. It's
Never
kind of
heard
like the batter's box thing, but I had to
All
come
right.
up with my own word because that's trademarked. So,
By
okay,
baseball.
by baseball. Subtractive or additive, and when and why? Quick.
To me, subtractive is to fix problems and additive is to make stuff sound fun. Omnichannel was supposed to, originally it had two EQs, one that was pre-dynamics that was only subtracting, and one that was after dynamics that was only boosting. And then realized that's not a good idea. But yeah, that's the way I think about them.
Nobody tells me which way to turn the knob.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I tried. And Wade said, "You're an idiot." Said, okay, but then
I
you
think
got to
it's kind
give
of
me.
interesting, actually.
Well, the idea is I wanted EQ before and after the dynamics, and there was not enough. We didn't want to use more DSP and the real estate for the interface and things like that. But that's when I said, well, I need an insert then, so I can put a second EQ, so I can have one pre and post.
Mm-hmm.
And that birthed the insert, which then got used in other plugins, and now has led to actually hosting VST3s. So it's a wrapper for VST3s, which is kind of cool just on its own. Not that there aren't other wrappers, but it's nice to have that inside of the channel strip. So anyway.
Yeah, very cool. All right. We probably could have kept going. But
no, because we would have done this, and then we would have wanted to do this, which we didn't do. And you got me on the AI train and on the
Oh, sorry. Well, you decide if you want to answer this or if you want to pick this up next time, and I'll save it. So, what jobs in the music industry could potentially be replaced by
AI? I don't know. And I think, though, the way I think about it at the moment is it's not taking my job away. Because the thing is that the AI can't necessarily be creative. What it can be is way better at listening to stuff and deducing things than you can be. Because, again, it's read every book, not just some books. It's listened to tons of music where you haven't. So that's where it's good, and that's it's like middle management. Like, it'll just build tools that'll make your life better and easier. Like the separating vocal from piano thing. Have I talked about this on the Low Roar record? The new Low
Yes.
Roar record? Yeah.
Yeah, last week.
The record would not be as good if I couldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's made my job easier, and that's great. But there was never anybody I could pay to do it. Like, it just didn't exist. So I think it's creating new stuff at the moment. There's a lot of automated mastering that people are trying to do, and I'm sure some of it's really good, but it will never make a creative decision. What it's doing is saying, well, I listened to 450,000 songs, and this is kind of what their frequency balance and dynamic range was. So I'm going to see if I can get your song to kind of do that sort of thing. And it's smarter than that. Like, it's looking at what genre it thinks it is and tempo. Like, it's got parameters.
Mm-hmm.
But that's basically what it's doing. And I don't know. I'm making up like the technical bits of this, but it's got to be pretty much how it works. But that's not going to be the same as someone saying like, ooh, what if I cut out all of the palm hits on the guitar body and added an octave below? Like, that stuff's not going to happen. So if you're good and you're creative, you'll keep your job. Because nothing else can do that, because you're making stuff up out of thin air, and it might be influenced by something, but it's in a really weird left turn way, which, as far as I know, none of these things do. Which is why, I mean, it used to be that machine learning and artificial intelligence were totally different. Artificial intelligence hasn't existed yet because it would come up with stuff out of left field. But machine learning has gotten to the point where the data sets are so huge that it seems to be doing that. So that's artificial intelligence. And possibly it's because it can pass the Turing test.
Finally somebody said this.
What, the Turing test thing?
Well, no, the AI doesn't really exist yet. You know?
In the traditional definition of it, you could argue that it's not creative in the same way that a human can be creative. Mm-hmm. But you could say, well, but who writing songs is completely creative? They might be off the wall and put stuff together in a way that you've never heard before. Mm-hmm. And there's no reason why you couldn't train a learning model to do that. But I think what you get to is that you start to redefine what human intelligence is as you learn more about what you can get software to do by teaching it stuff. Mm-hmm. And so, I can say AI doesn't exist, but that's because I'm going by a definition that I don't know is relevant anymore.
Right.
And, maybe we're not as like magically creative as we think, but it doesn't matter. Who cares? We like what we do. And we tend to, maybe because we have less input, we can turn it on its head easier, because it's as if we have to work off the memory of something and it's not actually what it was. Like, it's as if the learning model was already through the filter of the things it's going to generate, because you're biasing it in really fucking weird ways. Mm-hmm. But you could make the argument that that's how we work as well, because we're just meat puppets, which is one of the best bands ever.
Yeah.
So look, and it takes, I think, like, and I used to be angry about this and like, and you've got to get over it. You have to get over it, because it's not actually what's going on in any way. So I think it's more interesting to start thinking about it differently.
You put it in a way that I love. So I love the quote that in order for AI to take somebody's job, clients would have to know exactly what they want. I like that one. And then I think that you just put it in a better way of like just the creative decisions. And also I'm excited for those tools because I want them to help me get there faster, or make room for me to do other creative things,
But look, if you think about when you ask ChatGPT to write an article about me, mm-hmm. you can tell it what style you want it in. And then once it doesn't, does it and you read it, you could say, oh, you know what? Could you use fewer adjectives? Or could you
Mm-hmm.
make this actually a little bit more like this writer? Why couldn't you start with the mix that's supposed to be like stuff and then
Mm-hmm.
give it mix notes?
Yeah. And if it's
You
good,
know,
I would have no problem with that. Because it's about the creativity at the end of the day, right?
yeah. And for a lot of, yeah, and then the creativity is the mix notes. It's hearing it and
Yeah.
going, oh, well, I think it would be better if you did this and
Yeah.
whatever. And there are lots of companies who've been trying to do like, learning model based mixing. And I think that it's just the source material is so diverse that it's much easier for it to think about a mix
Right.
and master it than it is for it to think about possibly 200 tracks of stuff.
Right.
Whereas we will make leaps of the background vocals, they're going to do this thing, so I'm just going to bounce them down. They sound fine. Or this thing won't matter, so I can ignore it.
Yeah.
And those are sort of educated decisions, but it's almost like you've got your learning model of all the audio you've ever heard, but you also have the learning model of every session you've ever been in and everything you've ever worked on, which
Right.
is process, not input to output.
Right.
And no one's doing that yet, but they will.
Yeah, they will. Yeah.
They will, but that's not going to replace PJ Harvey. So
Mm-hmm.
be as good as she is, and you can't be replaced.
Yeah. There you go.
Basically,
Yeah.
be as compelling as whoever you think is a badass.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're mediocre, shouldn't you be replaced by someone who can get it? I mean, you talk about a person taking your job, but as long as they take it because they do a better job, then how do you argue? If they take it because, you stole the kid's lunch money in high school and he just remembered that, oh, that's you, whatever, then that's
Did
not
that happen to
great.
you?
No. No, it didn't. But, I'm just trying to come up with an example where it has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
That's the other thing is, an AM auto doesn't have weird outside influences that'll change what it does. Like, it doesn't care if it's raining or if it has a stomach ache. Like,
Yeah.
and those things do influence stuff. So you're not going to get off the rails the way you do with humans in the same
Mm-hmm.
way. And that's what makes stuff exciting and interesting. But yeah, if you're just sort of mediocre, then, you want to get better and you want to have the chance to get better by doing more of it. But if you're not being creative, then is it what are you adding to the party?
Yeah.
That's worth.
Right.
I mean, it's like with the analog digital thing. I'm not trying to say that, like, if you're not amazing right away, you shouldn't work, because I wouldn't have a career.
Yeah.
You have to learn to do it, and unfortunately, software can learn really, really, really fast,
Mm-hmm.
and humans don't. But you can have something, just that you're not a dick, that you're a good hang, and people want to be somewhere recording with someone who's a good hang. And then they decide, well, yeah, I want to mix the record with you because you get us. So that's your learning model. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
look, and I think I actually used to say this, is we're like little tiny learning models on every project we do. We learn what people like and what they don't. So if you mix one song at a time on a record, one would think by the time you get to song 10, your first mix is much closer to what they want than song 1 probably was.
Mm-hmm.
That's because you have a little learning model just for the progress through that album that has nothing to do with every other album you've ever worked on.
Right. Right.
So that's just different. So there are a million ways you can think about it where humans do stuff in ways that actually are completely random and don't make any sense and are probably stupid. But that's what makes stuff different.
Totally. Yeah.
We'll stop there.
Yeah. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the thing behind you that can act randomly sometimes and all that too, right?
Yeah, distorting the
Yeah.
A to D. Like a learning model is not going to say, I wonder what would happen if I did it wrong. Like, they don't
Yeah.
think that way. They don't think like, oh, that cat is cute.
Right.
I like
Yeah.
that cat. Like, so it's cat.
Right. There you go.
That's it.
It's cat. It's cat. Nice. All right. Well, we have another episode ahead of us. We'll
Yeah,
we'll get
just
it on the
one.
schedule.
But we're going to schedule it right now.
Ah,
Hold on.
on the air. I love it.
Yeah, we got to do it because we
Yeah.
can't, because we had like 2.5 months off, didn't we?
Yeah, it was painful. Let's see.
I mean, we could do 2 weeks from today.
I am going to be out of town that day.
Oh, right, because you're doing your gig on St. Patrick's Day.
That's right.
And I'm out of town the next one. We could do an April Fool's episode.
Oh, yes, please.
Oh, no. Actually, because that's Easter weekend and some family's going to be in town,
All
our
right.
nephews and stuff. And we definitely need to do this on a Monday, right?
Yes. Well,
Okay,
I mean, yeah,
we're going to
yeah.
do it April 8th.
All right, sold. April 8th it is. The conclusion of the
Yes.
thrilling saga.
The final episode ever.
Yep. Awesome. Well, just of awesome people talk to Andrew.
Yes.
And not forever, because you're not done yet, so it won't be forever.
We're not revisiting this.
Well, I'm not saying to like recap the entire series, but you know, you're gonna
No,
do
we
more
could.
records, and we're gonna have to talk about them
I'm not doing anything interesting.
ever again.
Yeah, that's it. I'm done.
Or up to now, you didn't do anything interesting, so we didn't have to have 6 episodes. What have we
Yeah,
been doing
exactly.
here?
I'm just telling stupid stories. I got, just to end this, I got an email from someone at the Worcester Library saying, "Would you come and do a talk?" Like, really? Like, go. Okay. And so I went, and Debbie and I went in and we met with her. Really cool, young woman who's like all over this shit. She's really good at what she does. And she sets up all these events. Like the Poet Laureate is coming on Saturday. Debbie and I will be going to that.
Nice.
And so we were talking about, well, like, what am I going to do? And I said, well, I think one thing that's good is to do like just a little tiny mixing demo. I'll bring a session. Just the fact that I can listen to individual bits of things and I can change the balance, that's like, oh, that's what that is. Like,
Yeah.
so we'll do a short one of those. And she said, and people want to know about your career. And I was like, well, they could go listen to 45 hours of me online. Like, but what I've decided to do is I'm just going to have pictures of different people I've worked with and chronologically, and I'm just going to tell stories. I'm like Michael Jackson, you're getting the Snickers bar story because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Stevie
Oh, that's
Wonder,
gonna
you
be
get
a
the
fun,
story about the orchestra in Italy. Like it's just
Yeah.
going to be the weird, stupid shit. Because, like, you can find out about them.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like, well, what happened on that record? So, like, the U2 Green Day thing is going to be that Paul McCartney also showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what, So
Yeah,
I think that'll
totally.
be cool. I think that's the way
Yeah.
to do it.
So Dave Westner pointed out that the total solar eclipse is on April 8th.
Where does Dave Westner live?
I live in Ohio.
I'm asking
gonna
about
get
Dave
dark.
Westner.
It's gonna get dark here.
Well, do you know that for sure? Do you know that that's the path of it? First of all,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. What time? Come on, because it'll go through. And if you guys are seeing it, I'm not going to see it, which sucks.
That's true. Right.
So I really don't give a shit. Plus,
I don't think I could pick it up on camera for everybody. That wouldn't work, right?
I went. Can I tell a little story then? We'll end with another little story.
Yeah.
So Chad Blake, the coolest guy on the planet, one of the best mixers ever. We got to find out where Weston lives because we need to know about this. Okay, so he's into the universe and I'm into the universe, and I have a Boston. Okay, so it's obviously like a Midwest to Northeast trail. And what time? Because we need to know that. I know you want to say a time, but maybe you should say the time that the eclipse is.
Tell your story.
Okay, so there was going to be a solar eclipse. And so I went out to Chad's house because it was going to be at something like 6 a.m. And near like Birmingham is close, Worcester is close. The sky is not that dark. And what that means is also there's other shit going on and there's more pollution. Obviously, it doesn't have to be dark for the sun part, but I just thought this is not the ideal place to go. So I'm going to go to Chad's. I'm going to stay over. We're going to look at Jupiter, which is cool because it's much easier from his house than from mine, because he was out in the middle of nowhere in Wales, which he actually still is. He's just in the middle of a different nowhere. So I went over that night, and he's got two sons, and one of them was going to go up to I can't remember the name of the islands, but where it was going to be a total eclipse. And so Chad's wife and his son went, and it was on this trip, and they had to wake up at like 3 a.m. to get a plane to fly up to this place. And we were just hanging out, his other son, and we went up to the top of the hill near his house, and we set up the telescope, and I had solar filter. So we started to get it tracking. And right as I was setting the thing up, through my telescope, a fucking 747 goes flying past. I thought, okay, that never happens, and I missed it. Like that, you get a picture of that. That's all. So anyway, we set it up, we get the camera on, and then Chad gets a call that they overslept and they missed the flight to this place. So they're like pissed. They're going to go see the total eclipse. So they're like, look, just get in the car, drive back here. If there's no traffic, you'll actually make it before the eclipse. And so they drive, they get back just in time, and we're looking at the eclipse through the telescope, and then we swap and put my camera on and take pictures. And I have a series of pictures of the eclipse, which are actually pretty fucking awesome.
Nice.
And they got back, saw the eclipse live, just with the glasses, and then through the telescope, and we have the pictures. And where they would have gone, cloudy. The whole time, cloudy. Couldn't see a fucking thing. So,
oh my gosh. Okay. Good chance of that. Yeah. So Dave said that too in there. And then he says, and by the way, I'd have to drive 3 to 4 hours for the total eclipse. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's a big deal. If you can see one, you really need to see one. So I don't want people sitting inside staring at a screen. So if that's a bad day in terms of the time, should we push it a week?
I think we should push it a week.
All right. So we'll have it on tax day.
Ugh. Tax day it is. April 15th.
April 15th.
Yeah.
As some people would say, April 15th, motherfuckers.
And as 6 of 1 says, it's also the Guardians opening day. I think that's a Cleveland team, but I don't know.
I have no idea
but there's a lot of crossover between our markets.
Yeah.
Sports, engineers, Andrew fans. Yeah. We can't do it.
All right, so 15th.
15th. Last one. Stravo says, greetings from Berkeley, Boston. Andrew, I started listening to a lot of your online talks recently. I love your approach to music and mixing. All the best. And that's how we'll leave it.
That's how we'll leave it. Thank you very much. Yeah. And I'll see you guys in like 6 weeks, but
yeah,
that's what it'll be. So you have 6 weeks to do your taxes. Get on it.
Ugh. I don't have a boo sound. I'll go with this.
Yeah, that'll be the sound of your car when you have to sell your real one.
Exactly.
Your
taxes.
All right,
guys.
All right, I'm going to bed.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much.
Really fun as always. Thanks, everybody.
Yes.
See ya.
Cheers, all.